All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, February 13th, 2024 meeting of the Rio Grande City Council. Can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Seacrest.
Here.
Councilmember George. Here. Councilmember Barnich. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Guthrie.
Here.
Mayor Ray Russum.
Here. Would you please silently join me in a moment of reflection? Thank you. And tonight we have the Aurora Grande Valley Kiwanis Club, and we have Ted Kiesinger and Mary Friedenberg. Mary, oh, hi, Mary. Come on, you did. It was tiny writing up here. Welcome.
It's actually Mary Bassett. We made it move fast.
There we go. And you know the drill. Tell us all things about the Kiwanis Club.
Okay,
So I told them to bring their wallets to the meeting on Thursday for a hefty fine. Upcoming, we've got an enchilada sale fundraiser we're looking at in April. We have sponsoring the ukulele festival in May, the third Saturday in May, right over here at Heritage Square Park. That's going to be our fifth one that we've sponsored. So it's turning out to be very well attended and really enjoying it. So, and good tri-tip sandwiches. So
And there's something else.
please, you tell me.
Can you step up to the mic for us so people at home can hear you?
He said, there's something else. we can't remember."
Oh,
I can't remember what it is,
sorry, didn't mean to call you out on that though.
but it's coming.
Yeah, we've got a lot of things that we're looking towards. We do every second Saturday of the month cook down at the senior center in Oceano, Central Coast Senior Center. Kiwanis is the cooks. This is your head cook. And it's growing more and more there too. So because people are starting to come back after COVID. So I think, I know, oh, Key Club, we're heavy into our Napomo High School Key Club. Aurora Grande, it's Pismo Kiwanis has Aurora Grande Key Club. And he's our new scholarship chairperson.
Yeah.
So he can tell you about
Sure,
that.
scholarship. And that's for Napomo, High Tech, and it's not for Aurora Grande High School, but that's ongoing. Well, here we are.
You're entitled to that moment. Anyway, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Thanks for everything you do. All right, this takes us to item 5, agenda review. So I think we may have some reason to move some things around. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we move up the community service grants to after the consent agenda because we have quite a number of people here probably just for that.
Which number is that?
No.
Is that 10B? No,
No, it's 12.
12A. All right, great. Does anybody have any objections to that? Okay, then we will move item 12A right after 9 and before 10. So 12A. So if anyone, well, moving it up is the easy part. Okay, any other reorganization? Okay, so we will otherwise proceed as published, but moving item 12A before item 10A. Closed session announcements tonight, we have none. For 5B, I will move that all ordinance presented at the meeting shall be read in title only and all further readings be waived. Second. Good motion is second. Can we get a, voice vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Special presentations tonight. Honorary proclamation recognizing February 2024 as Teen Dating Violence Action and Prevention Month. And we have Callie Tannock and Molly Garola who will meet me at the podium here.
Need to put that up there.
Hi, thank you for coming. This is an honorary proclamation recognizing February 2024 as Teen Dating Violence Action and Prevention Month. Whereas Teen Dating Violence Action and Prevention Month calls attention to the fact that dating violence is widespread and impacts every young person in Arroyo Grande. And whereas according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, 1 in 11 female teens and 1 in 15 male teens reported experiencing physical violence in the last year. 1 in 9 female and 1 in 36 male high school students report having experienced sexual dating violence in the last year. And 1 in 3 adolescents report verbal, emotional, physical, or sexual dating abuse each year. And whereas dating violence affects LGBTQ plus youth at rates higher than their cisgender and heterosexual peers, and whereas nearly half of students who experience dating violence have reported that some of the abuse took place on school grounds. Whereas teen dating violence has been linked to other forms of violence and aggression, and survivors are more likely to suffer from eating disorders, drug and alcohol abuse, dropout, teen pregnancy, future abusive relationships, and suicide. And whereas Lumina Alliance continues to provide a safe environment for young people affected by teen dating violence with crisis intervention, counseling, legal services, safe emergency housing, and local community prevention programs, such as Close to Home. And whereas the establishment of Teen Dating Violence Action and Prevention Month will benefit schools, communities, families, and all youth. Whereas the city of Arroyo Grande joins Lumina Alliance and Close to Home and other advocates and communities across the county in taking action to prevent dating violence, and acknowledges that each day of the year is an opportunity to create change for the future. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Karen Ray Russell, Mayor of the City of Arroyo Grande, do hereby, in recognition of the important work done by dating violence programs, do hereby proclaim the month of February as Teen Dating Violence Action and Prevention Month, and support communities that empower teens to develop healthy and violence-free relationships throughout their lives.
Thank you so much.
And we definitely invite you to speak.
I just want to remind everybody about Lumina Alliance. It is our county's resource center for sexual assault and intimate partner violence. We provide wraparound services for survivors as well as a 24-hour crisis line. And Close to Home is our community action team made up of local adults and youths who are helping us on our mission to create a community free from violence. And buy-in from community leaders such as yourselves helps us one step further on that mission. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Would anybody at the council like to speak? Okay, thank you so
Yeah.
much. All right, our second honorary proclamation is recognizing Fire Chief Steve Lieberman upon his retirement from public service. And I almost didn't recognize him back there looking all incognito. I was about to ask if he's here. Would you meet me at the dais, sir? Look, we're in the same place at the same time for once, Steve. You've had a lot of these lately, haven't you?
Tour.
This is an honorary proclamation recognizing you, Steve Lieberman, upon his retirement from public service. Whereas Stephen Lieberman is retiring as fire chief of the Five Cities Fire Authority after a successful year of over 30 years in public service. And whereas in 2014, Steve was appointed to the position of fire chief / executive officer with the Five Cities Fire Authority. And whereas Chief Lieberman has an expansive background, including 5 years of fire service with the city of Grover Beach, 2 terms on the Grover Beach City Council as mayor, and director of Emergency Medical Services Division within the county of San Luis Obispo. And whereas during his tenure, Chief Lieberman was instrumental in strategic planning and analysis, upgrading needed equipment, completing long-term financial projections, including capital improvement replacement, transitioning the firefighter program from part-time to full-time, providing consistent supervision with a shift-based battalion chief program, establishing a public information program, transitioning emergency dispatch services to regional fire-based dispatch center, and Whereas during the COVID-19 pandemic, Chief Lieberman dedicated himself to the community by serving as the local government liaison to the county public health department during early stages of international spread of virus, assisted member communities with preparing a continuity of operations plan to maintain basic services and employee safety, obtained appropriate PPE and disinfecting equipment to minimize threat of infection to first responders, and coordinated with the public health department to maintain initial flow of PPE for FCFA and member communities. And whereas throughout his career, Chief Lieberman has served on various boards, such as the San Luis Obispo County Incident Management Team as its liaison officer, Area Command Team 3, National Interagency Incident Management Team for the August 2020 complex fires and 2020 Colorado fires, San Luis Obispo County Fire Chiefs Association, serving as president for 2 terms, Regional Hazardous Materials Team, Homeland Security Grant Program, Emergency Medical Services Operations Committee, and Ambulance Performance Operations Committee. Not herefore limited to any of those things, so much more. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Karen Ray Russ, Mayor of the City of Arroyo Grande, do hereby express sincere appreciation to Stephen Lieberman for his outstanding and dedicated service to the City of Arroyo Grande and its citizens, and congratulate him on his retirement.
Thank you so much. That was very kind. It's been a whirlwind announcing in December, yet I'm still your fire chief. February 26th will be a transition to another interim fire chief, trusted friend, well-known in our county, Keith Agason, most recently the fire chief with San Luis Obispo City, will be coming in as interim behind me to cover that period of time until the next fire chief is appointed by the board. The interviews are scheduled for February 29th. Just want to say it's been an honor. It's been a journey. It's been rough at times. But I've lived in the South County since I moved here in 1990, and it's home. I appreciate the staff that I've gotten to work with. It's been an interesting time since 2014 when I started, but I truly believe having Mr. Downing back home is a great thing for our community. I think I'll still text him once in a while and be snotty, but I'm just grateful for the opportunity I was given. I'm grateful for where the organization is today, and that wouldn't be there without support of councils such as yourself. So I want to thank you for taking care of your community as well. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
One more time.
I don't know if things keep going like they are. Working hard on meeting this
I'm
last-
fairly sure that that proclamation was not long enough for all the things we could have fit on there and all the things that were not even related to fire that could have been on there. Chief, you've just done so much for multiple communities. There's just no way to say thank you. So much appreciated. All right, and item, you know what, since we do have at least one family member in the audience, let's go ahead and just open up public comment. We don't normally, but in case anybody had anything they wanted to say. Well, hello.
Hello, well, thank you for the opportunity for having something to say. Keith Storton, Myrtle Drive, Arroyo Grande. I just want to give my support towards Steve. I've known him professionally, politically, personally. He was Mr. Lieberman, Mayor Lieberman, Chief Lieberman, and Steve. And just a wonderful asset to our community and has served us so well in so many ways. And I just want to publicly thank him for his service and commitment to our area. He's a really important person that has really done a lot for us and has put us on a foot forward in a direction that hopefully sustains our ability to keep fire services in our community at a professional level. And it's because of him we have that ability to move forward. So just wanted to say thank you.
Anyone else like to speak for public comment? Nancy? All right, then we'll close public comment and I'll just say, Chief, you've told me 1,000 times to call you Steve. I can't do it. I never will. I
Here.
still call Chiefs. Yes.
Sorry, there are people online.
Oh, excellent. Let's go there.
It's testing.
If
yes.
there are any members of the public online who would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. There are no raised hands.
All right, thank you for that. Thanks for that reminder. In any case, I still call Chief Fevick Chief. Cannot call him Terry, and you'll never be called Steve by me either. You'll always be Chief. You earned the title and you get to keep it forever. So thank you.
I didn't speak at the lunch we had. I'm not sure why. Maybe I was nervous. Anyway, I've said it before and I want to reiterate it. I don't know if I said it publicly, but your staff reports and your presentations here were literally top notch, one of the best, very professional. And we appreciate that, of course. And your help getting us through the pandemic. It was weird and it was hard. And I felt a lot more comfortable having you help us stand up the COVID vaccination clinic. And you played a huge part in that. And that was something that no one had ever done before. And so I appreciate that. And I wish you well in your retirement.
All right. Any other council members have things to say? All right, then we will say thank you and we will move on to item 6C. This is City Manager Communications.
Well, thank you, Mayor, members of council. Matt Downing, your city manager. I will briefly say thank you to Chief Lieberman, who I do call Steve because he's Steve. And to thank him, I will not read one of my bullets that he stole from me in my city manager update to you this evening. So thank you, Chief, for everything. So it's been a few weeks since the council has met and there have been a lot of things going on in the community. And so we do have several items to talk to you about this evening, but then I'll turn it over to our assistant city manager to highlight some of the highlights of the recent storm events. Pardon me. In the police department, I did want to let you and the community know that beginning this week, the police department did start the first phase of the installation of the public safety video project, which the council approved back in November of 2023. So that's very exciting. They're already done installing cameras on the police department. So that's moving forward rapidly. Turning to the Five Cities Fire Authority, as I mentioned, I'll skip one of my bullets and mention that FCFA Captain Craig Angelo has been promoted to battalion chief. So wanted to announce that to the community. He will be starting that new role on March the 1st. Over in recreation, we did have the volunteer appreciation event back on January 27th. Mayor Pro Tem Guthrie was there, as well as myself, and over 100 attendees. So we had over 110 attendees at the volunteer appreciation lunch. And even though it was a lunch honoring them, they all said, how can we help? So that just highlights again what a community of volunteers we have. We also have the upcoming Meet the Machines event on February 24th. That's a Saturday at Soto Sports Complex. So we're looking forward to that as well. And then I mentioned at the last meeting, but on Wednesday, February 28th at 6 p.m., the Community Development Department will be hosting a new visioning workshop for the general plan update here in the chamber. So this is a great way for the community to get involved in this important long-range visioning work. And then over in our clerk's office, they've been busy. As you can see, our deputy city clerk is clerking her first council meeting this evening. And she was also very instrumental in getting our winter city newsletter, the Arroyo Grande Gazette, completed. It is published on the city's website, and we will have copies available at city offices soon. We are also discussing options in order to address many of our city's needs, including infrastructure, but we want to do this responsibly and with community support. So a mailer will be in the residents' mailboxes here in the coming weeks, requesting community members to complete a short survey. That survey is online on the city's website already. And so I did want to communicate to the council and the community that we are listening and we do want to hear from you on this matter. And then last but certainly not least, did you know we got hit with a tornado last week? One day shy of my first month as your city manager, we got hit by a tornado. So that's very exciting. I can't thank all of our staff, our Five Cities Fire, our police department, our public works, all of our city staff for all of the hard work that they put in this last week on that storm event. So many calls for service, so many down trees, so many power line issues. And they all stepped up without complaining and took care of the community. So I can't thank them enough, but I will turn it over to our Assistant City Manager and Public Works Director, Bill Robeson, to kind of give you a highlight of some of the bright points of that storm event.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and council members. Yeah, I would think the first thing that comes to mind is just really how well we worked as public safety crews, public safety agencies, departments, I should say, with fire and PD and public works. They were in constant communication at several incident areas, and they just really coordinated and covered each other really well. And they were all very safe in doing so. So this covers February 3rd to February 7th, as our city manager just said. These are just a few highlights. I didn't want to get too deep into these, but this is on the Pike. This is probably one of the largest incident we've had in a while. 10 power poles down, and it was taken down those were taken down by a large eucalyptus tree. So you can see that tree in this slide. Just some of how the power poles were laying. And then this is kind of a common occurrence that we had where our drainage inlets were covered with debris because the wind was so powerful. We do clean those throughout the year, and we make sure that they're clean as we approach the rainy season. But this drainage inlet here where you see one of our crew in was just covered with eucalyptus bark. So it had to just be pulled out. And when that was done, that really took care of the problem in those areas. One other point I should make is we have been getting a lot of calls from the neighbors in the Pike area. We've been in contact with the county. The county is going to be coordinating a joint meeting in the near future so that we can start to have a solution to dealing with those eucalyptus trees in the future. This is another area on East Branch Street. Two large eucalyptus trees from the Caltrans property. You can see them here. They're down in the street, and here's our crews working on them. These are 60-foot trees, huge trunks. So there's a lot of work that goes into cutting those up safely and then moving them so that Caltrans can get to them in the near future and dispose of them. But there's a lot of work to place those so that they don't become a hazardous issue in the future or in the near future for travelers. This is another spot that we had a lot of down trees in that Strother Park. A lot of people use that park to walk their dog there, to walk around, exercise. You can just kind of see the power that was shown by the winds. It just blew the trees down. Some of them may have been a little bit diseased, so took them out for us, but we cut those up and removed them, and there were about 6 of those, along with some significant limbs as well. Soto Sports Complex, we had some damage there. Some large liquid amber trees that were blown over. This slide in the middle is a pole that holds up our netting to protect some of the houses and spectators from errant foul balls from baseball, and that just blew over. And when you go look at that metal, you can see how powerful that was. It just bent it and sheared it right off of the hold down for that. This is just another note. We made a stand for the public to fill their sandbags easier. It's kind of a cone system where you can put your sandbag underneath it, fill it relatively easy versus just holding it with one hand and then trying to shovel with the other. So we have that sandbag. We have sandbags at Public Works. We have a pile of sand. We have a shovel. so people can go out and start to prepare for the storms and the upcoming storms that are coming next weekend. Just as another note, on the weekends when Public Works is closed, we have sandbags at the police department, so they can go pick those up there and come over and fill the bags at Public Works. This large sand pile doesn't look that large there, but it's replenished, and but it is there almost all year round. But it's obviously used mainly season. It's at the entrance to our yard. Tallyho Creek and AG Creek have been flowing very smoothly. We've been monitoring those. These shots are of some improvements that we've done in the Tallyho area. You can see the White Bridge here at 227 and near Corbett Canyon. We took a huge amount of sediment out. You can see the sediment that's blown or flowed down from Corbett Canyon, the tributary there. But this still is much more open than it used to be. This opening under the bridge used to be maybe about a foot, and now it's about 3 feet open. So we're having good flow there, and that sediment does naturally move down the creek there. And this is a tributary, kind of a drainage on 227 that's much more open now, and it flows much better. So we're having a lot more flows there, which translates into less flooding in that intersection. This is my last slide. Just for the upcoming forecast, this is changing still, but we're anticipating a 5-day rain total of about 4.5 to 5.5 inches, which is a lot. But the rains that we had in this past storm were, in that 4 days, 3.5 inches or so. We're not expecting the winds to be nearly as strong as they were, although that could change. So we're looking at strong breezes in the 30-mile-an-hour range, where last Wednesday they were up in the 80-mile-an-hour range, the tornadoes that we talked about. And there was some pretty sustained winds at 50 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour. So we're hopefully going to see something that's less impactful, but we will be ready. We have crews that will be on standby and be ready to work with fire and PD in case there's any safety issues. That ends my presentation, and I can answer any questions.
All right, let's check in. Any questions to my right? Any questions to my left? All right, let's see if the public has any questions. Would anybody like to ask questions of the city manager's report? And seeing no one here, let's check in online.
If there are any members of the public on Zoom who would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. There are no raised hands.
All right, we'll close public comment. And we will move forward to city council reports, item 7. We do that in the second meeting of the month. So we don't have those this evening. So that takes us straight to community comments and suggestions. This is your chance to come talk to the council about items that are not on tonight's agenda, and go ahead and come up. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less and address the council as one body. So if you have comments on tonight's agenda, on items that are not on tonight's agenda, now would be your time.
Two things, unless my ears deceive me, the AV crew has come and done a good job. And the other thing, I just want to bring up the pedestrian crossing, the flashing one that's closest to the council chambers. Half of it is not flashing. And that does make me a lot more nervous when I use that crossing.
Anyone else?
My name is Gary Schmidt, a resident of Arroyo Grande. First, I would like to express my appreciation for all the diligent work you do to look out for the interests of all of us in Arroyo Grande. What I'm here to speak about is the significant gap in protection that exists when it comes to the competing interests of Arroyo Grande citizens and telecommunication giants when they apply to build their infrastructure. The field where this plays out is drastically tilted in favor of the corporate giants for 2 reasons. 1, the ancient FCC regulations grant the corporation significant latitude, which we can't do very much about. 2, Local entities have not built into their ordinances as much control as possible. So I'm here to ask you to make it a priority to strengthen our city guidelines to add more protection. I have several suggestions based on my amateur research into municipal codes and cases where denials have been upheld in federal courts. 1, require an applicant to establish that a significant gap in coverage exists. A standard that has been upheld in federal courts is that there is not a significant gap when a cell phone can reliably reach a landline. It is not sufficient for an applicant to say that the coverage is not up to the public, to what the public has come to expect, which includes being able to live stream the Super Bowl. In addition, this proof of a significant gap can require that the applicant's evidence be based on actual records of dropped calls and numbers of individuals who experience this over time. Second, require an applicant to provide detailed information on how they reach the conclusion that the proposed location meets the least intrusive means test. It looks like this could be strengthened in the current guidelines, and then it could be more stringently applied. 3, require that stealth installations actually be that in the proposed location. For example, do the photographs show how the installation will actually look from the perspective of the nearby residents? Is the faux feature similar to other structures in the area? 4, require that installations be avoided in locations that will adversely affect property values. 5, study the possibility of setback requirements that take current science related to health effects into consideration. The FCC rules are from 1996, and following them when known evidence says otherwise is not a protection from future tort lawsuits. The corporation giants are anticipating future tort legal action that will result in costly payouts.
Mr. Schmidt,
So
thank
they
you so much.
disclose this to investors, but do not warn customers.
Thank you so much. And we did get that prior to the
Yeah.
meeting. So thank you so much for
You-
providing that ahead of time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. No, we would definitely appreciate getting that ahead of time.
Good evening, Council. Keith Storton, Myrtle Drive, Red Grandy. I'd like to start off by welcoming Mr. Downing as our new city manager. I'm looking forward to your passion, professionalism, and the stability that you're going to bring to our city. I'd also like to recognize the work and the beautification of our village with the removal of the many broken tiles along our sidewalks and the replacement with the brick pavers. Additionally, the rock aggregate fill in to the tree wells is a welcome feature as well. This work is noticeably twofold. One, the walking area in our village creates a much safer space for our citizens as well as visitors to enjoy our charming village. Additionally, there's a visual aesthetic that improves upon the look and feel of our downtown as the city invests in itself for the benefit of our many local shop owners and businesses. This beautification translates into people wanting to spend their time here along with their money, which is very important. It's an aspect for success for any city and certainly for any business. By doing so, customers enjoy themselves in our charm, businesses thrive, workers get paid, and it creates a vicious cycle of hope and optimism. I'm thankful for these continued good works as we invest in ourselves and care for our city. We all own the city of Rio Grande together. And I'd like to thank our city staff, our city council, and many of the citizens that give up themselves to make our city a wonderful place. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak on items not on tonight's agenda? All right, let's check in online.
If any members of the public on Zoom would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. There are no raised hands.
Thank you. So we'll close public comment. So Bill, I just want to check in with you. When she mentioned, and Alexandra mentioned that half of the flashing lights aren't flashing on the, I was gonna call it the rooster crossing. It looks like you're aware of that. What's going on with that?
Well, we have some equipment that we've installed and it's under warranty. Actually, solar, it's called Constellations, something Constellations. I've been talking to them a lot lately. They were the product provider for lighting of the crosswalks. It's under warranty. Some of them have not been functioning well. They're coming out hopefully in the next day or two to repair that. Our crews reset those, but what we want is new equipment to be put in so that we don't have this occurrence. Yeah,
All right.
so thank you.
So it's underway. Thank you. And it's not very often we have somebody come up here and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. So appreciate that, Mr. Storton. All right, so we will close public comment and move on to the consent agenda. This is collectively items 9A tonight through 9G. So first I will ask the council if they have anything for to pull for either questioning or separate consideration. Anyone? Anyone? And I am going to pull for separate consideration 9C. I was not here and have not watched the tape. So I'm gonna, I guess I don't need to recuse. I will be abstaining from that. So I guess I don't need to have that separate consideration. So since we have no questions, we'll open up public comment, items 9A through 9G. Would anyone like to speak?
One question, could we please find out more about the downtown parking advisory board? I'm just curious as to what it is and what they do.
Any other public comment? We'll check it online and see if there's any comment there.
If any members of the public on Zoom would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. There are no raised hands.
Okay, so I'll turn this over to the city manager so that he can briefly go over what the Downtown Parking Advisory Board is and maybe perhaps significantly who is eligible to serve on that.
Certainly. So the Downtown Parking Advisory Board is a body responsible for advising the city council and staff on a number of different functions in the village itself, namely the funds that are collected in the village, additional assessment, how those monies are spent, particularly on parking, and trying to address parking inventory needs, quality, all of those different things. And so they do make recommendations for that. One of the key characteristics of that is you have to actually own a business here in the village. So the individual on up for appointment this evening has been on the board before, and I know him well from my previous tenure with the city. So we're looking forward to continuing to have members on that board if anybody else is interested.
Thank you. So I will bring it back around to the council and just remind everybody that I do need to have 9C pulled separately so that I can have an abstain vote rather than a yay or a nay.
Madam Mayor, I move for approval of items 9A through 9G, excluding 9C.
Second, third. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Barnich.
Yes.
Councilmember George.
Yes.
Councilmember Seacrest.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Guthrie.
Yes.
Mayor Ray Russum.
Yes.
And Madam Mayor, I move for approval of item 9C.
Second. All right, we have a motion, a second. Can we again get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Barnich.
Yes.
Councilmember Seacrest.
Yes.
Councilmember George.
Abstain.
Mayor Pro Tem Guthrie.
Yes.
Mayor Ray Russum.
Abstain. All right, that takes us lickety split to item 12A, but don't get excited. We still have 10A and 10B to come. So I see from behind the curtain, we have Mr. Perez. The item title is consideration of a resolution approving Arroyo Grande Community Service Grant Program allocations for fiscal year 23-24 and finding this action is not a project under the SEPA state guidelines, section 1578.
Yes. Madam Mayor, I just wanted to recuse myself because I have a nonprofit that has applied for the grant. So
Thank you very much. So we'll give her a second before you get started, Mr. Perez. All right, sir.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm Andrew Perez, the city's planning manager. And as you mentioned, I'm here this evening to present the staff report with the recommended allocations for this year's grant program. As a bit of background, the grant program was established in 2014 with the purpose of being an alternative funding source for local nonprofit organizations that had previously relied on the federal community development block grant program as a sole funding source. Those organizations seeking funding must operate as nonprofit organizations and also must directly serve the Arroyo Grande community. That service can be through social services or providing an educational, cultural, beautification, and or recreational program that directly benefits Arroyo Grande residents. We are fortunate to have $75,000 for this year's program. The application period for this year's program opened on November 8th and closed on December 15th. During that time, a total of 18 applications were submitted, collectively requesting a total of $157,760. For the sake of comparison, last year's program saw 12 applications submitted, requesting just under $125,000. And table 1 in the staff report provided for tonight's agenda item summarizes the applications, the programs and services proposed by each organization, as well as the amounts requested by each. The funding recommendations being considered by council this evening come directly from the Community Service Grant Review Committee. This committee is appointed by each of the 5 council members, and this is the second year the program has used a council-appointed committee rather than relying on volunteers from the city's advisory bodies, which was the practice in years prior. The Grant Review Committee convened on January 29th here in council chambers. It was noticed as a public meeting in accordance with the Brown Act and was open to all applicants and any member of the public that was interested in the program. In terms of process, the Grant Review Committee reviewed each of the 18 applications individually. Applicants were invited to address the committee when their application was being discussed. And then the meeting concluded with a group discussion amongst the committee that produced the final recommendations for consideration this evening. But to summarize the funding recommendations before you tonight, the committee recommends at least partially funding 16 of the 18 applications submitted. In general, funding for programs that directly provide services for individuals were prioritized over applications that proposed beautification or enrichment type services and programs. And even more specifically, applications providing services for at-risk youth and senior citizens were more likely to be recommended to receive a grant. So now I'll quickly go through the 18 applications, the program or service that they intend to provide, as well as the recommendation from the grant committee. Beginning with the American Legion, the grant committee recommends allocating $1,000 to this organization for their program that places wreaths at all of the grave sites for veterans that are interred at the Arroyo Grande Cemetery. The grant committee recommends $4,000 for the Assistance League and its Operation School Bell, which provides school supplies and clothing to children in need. The grant committee does not recommend any funding for the application from Arroyo Grande Public Art and its proposal to provide public art that honors emergency responders. However, the committee did recommend $2,000 for the application from Arroyo Grande Public Art to place an agricultural themed mural on the building at 320 East Branch Street. Moving on to the Arroyo Grande Valley Little League, $7,000 was recommended from or by the committee for this organization to carry out field maintenance at the Soto Sports Complex, cover costs associated with live scanning its volunteers and providing scholarships. $5,000 was proposed to be allocated to Big Brothers and Big Sisters for its youth mentoring program. Another $5,000 was recommended to be allocated to the Boys and Girls Club of San Luis Obispo County for its summer educational program. $1,500 was proposed to be allocated to the Boy Scouts Los Padres Council to expand scouting here in Arroyo Grande. The grant committee recommends $2,000 for Camp Arroyo Grande to cover costs associated with providing nature discovery field trips up at the camp. $9,500 was recommended for the Center for Child and Adolescent Mental Health. This is an organization that provides peer-to-peer support and mental health care for children and adolescents. The Grant Review Committee recommends allocating $7,000 to the Central Coast Athletics Foundation in order to expand its youth track club and provide scholarships for young athletes. Central Coast Seniors was recommended to receive $4,000 for maintenance and operations at its Central Coast Senior Center. The grant committee recommends $2,000 for the Elm Street Dog Park Association for maintenance and improvements at the park. The grant committee recommends $5,000 for Hospice of SLO County for training volunteers that would provide grief counseling services for families in need. Another $9,000 is allocated or is recommended to be allocated to Shower the People, which provides hot showers for the unhoused. Grant committee recommends $5,000 for SLO CASA, or the Court Appointed Special Advocates for Children. This organization trains volunteers to advocate for children that are under the jurisdiction of the Juvenile Dependency Court. And then moving on to our final two, $6,000 is recommended for the Senior Nutrition Program, which provides meals to homebound seniors. And the grant committee did not recommend funding the application from Talent Dreams, which provides organization provides online mentoring programs for young adults. And in conclusion, staff does recommend that council approves the Community Service Grant Program funding recommendations made by the Grant Review Committee as provided in the prepared resolution.
Thank you very much. Let's see if council has any questions. Councilmember Seacrest?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Brundage?
Yes, thank you. Andrew, can you go back like 2 slides? I just noticed that there's an asterisk after the CASA. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, there's an asterisk on a couple of these, and that just means that the request was fully funded.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's see. I have a question about the Little League request. And one of their objectives, and maybe 2 of them, are the Soto Field renovations. And so my question is, the city, what's the responsibility for us for that?
I can answer that question. Bill Robeson, Assistant City Manager, Public Works Director. So we work together and partner with a lot of the youth leagues. The field maintenance, that's kind of a general heading, but our staff goes in and maintains the infield soil, the outfield soil, the lawn, the turf, the irrigation systems, but there's oftentimes some specialized issues that come up after a lot of use. Sometimes there's mounding in the areas where the turf and the soil or the infield soil come together, and around the warning track. So that's a specialized piece of equipment that has to trim the turf, and then there's a lot of work and handwork that has to be done to take that soil down so that it's level with the grass again. And so there's no tripping, and it's easy for the kids to play on. So when it comes to those specialized things, we rely on those partnerships with organizations like AG Valley Little League to take care of and help us with.
Thank you for that, Bill. Okay, and then another question. I'm not sure if the applicants are here, but I have some questions regarding the amount of people served for some of these entities. And I don't know, Andrew, I mean, it just comes off the application, so I don't know necessarily if these questions were asked when you were before the committee. But for instance, for the Little League, it says that there's 2,000 Arroyo Grande residents served. And so, I don't know if anyone's here, or Andrew, if you can shed any light on that figure.
You know, during the grant committee discussion, the number of people served did come up with on some applications, but I don't recall it being discussed with regards to the Little League's application.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then same question, but maybe it came up or maybe it didn't. With the Central Coast Athletics Foundation, it says 1,200 to 15 Arroyo Grande residents served. Any additional information on, I mean, I'm assuming, both of those are, some of the other ones I looked at were 201 Arroyo Grande residents served, 45 residents served. So these really stuck out. And so I'm just trying to, since this is Arroyo Grande taxpayers' money, I just want to make sure that it's going to Arroyo Grande residents that benefit Arroyo Grande. So do you have any information on that, Andrew, the 1,200 to 1,500?
No, unfortunately, I do not.
Okay. And do you know if there's anyone here from either of those entities? I don't think so, but I'm not sure.
I don't see them unless they're on Zoom.
Okay, okay. Then I have another question regarding the scholarships for the Little League as well. But maybe someone's on Zoom and can answer these questions. So I guess I'll just kind of leave those questions hanging and see if someone tunes in. Okay, thank you.
Why don't we just go ahead and ask right now, if the city clerk could facilitate that?
If there are any members of the public that are representing these organizations, could you please raise your hand? There's one raised hand. Ramona, you can speak.
Hi, thank you. I am here representing the Center for Child and Adolescent Mental Health. I didn't hear you mention one of those in terms of questions, but I am here to represent CCAMH. So let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Mayor. We'll let you speak when we get to the public comment. Thank you so much for identifying yourself.
Great, thanks.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem Guthrie, any questions?
Yeah, so just one, we do have a couple of items on here that are significantly underfunded from their request. And I realize some of them can just scale and some of them are but for instance, I'm looking at the second, the mural for the Arroyo Grande Public Art. So do we have a follow-up that, you know, that says 5 years from now, whether they ever produce the mural, and do we have any kind of a follow-up that ensures that in fact what we gave them money for was produced?
Yeah, very good question. So after tonight's meeting, staff will coordinate with each of these organizations to have a agreement executed between that organization and the city, in which the organization states that they intend to use the money they received for the purposes that they stated on their application. And as part of that agreement, they're required to submit invoices or receipts indicating that they have spent that money the way they indicate they were going to.
So we're paying based on their invoices, not just sending them a check. And really, in some cases we probably are, but we're paying based on an invoice that they actually purchase the item or make progress.
That's correct.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And what's you asked a good question. What's the time frame that they have? Is it in perpetuity, or do they have a year, or how does that work?
End of the fiscal year.
I can do that. I apologize. I just figured out my notes here. Would you mind going back to the slide that showed meals that connect people, I think is the name of it? Was that the same one?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
Can I, senior nutrition program? Okay. And so they requested 10,000 and they, the committee, opined that 6,000 was the amount they'd like to give.
that's correct.
Thank you. And then are they in any way connected to Meals on Wheels?
I do not think
Used to
so.
be.
Yeah,
Okay. And this is a program that solely serves seniors in Arroyo Grande?
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So that can, yes, go ahead. A raised finger is recognized as Councilman Burnett.
Thank you. Just following up on Mayor Pro Tem Guthrie's question about how we sort of check in and follow up and find out if things happen that they said were going to happen. Particularly intrigued by the scholarships. A lot of these, or a handful of these groups, mention scholarships, and a lot of those are objective 3, for instance, on some of these. And so it wasn't very clear how many scholarships, if those scholarships would, I would hope, obviously be offered to Arroyo Grande residents. And so I guess what I'm asking is, when you go back to the entity, if they receive the funding, will something be tightened up a little bit? Because I could see perhaps on some of these, if there was no one that came forward that wanted a scholarship, and that was one of their objectives, then the money that we believed was going to scholarships ended up going to the uniforms or the marketing. So how do we make sure that, I mean, could the council actually, if we do award some money to these entities, could we narrow that down and say scholarships only?
I would say that's definitely within the purview of the council. So what staff relies on is the income and expense tables that are provided in the application. So we'll compare the reimbursement requests against what's been requested by or in the application. And so that's how we use to ensure that the money's going where the applicant says it would go.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any other questions? Okay, then let's go ahead and open up public comment. If you would like to comment on item 12A, now's your chance. Come on up.
Hello, my name's Athena Maishad, and I'm a member of the Central Coast Senior Center. And Mary?
I am Mary Bassett-Fernberg again. I am the new president this year at the Central Coast Senior Center. Thank you to Miss Pearl Cole, our almost 101-year-old senior member at our senior center. So,
And Arroyo Grande resident who had the foresight to set up the senior center. And even though we're located in Oceano, 42% of our membership is from Arroyo Grande. I wanted to specifically thank you for the transparency in this whole process, having done a few grants with other cities who shall remain nameless. We've never got to see the process, and so it was really interesting, and helps you to understand how difficult it is to divide up this money because there's so many good organizations. And we just want you to know that we really appreciate it. The $4,000 will go a long way. Our operating budgets for 2022 was about $49,000. So you can see it's going to help us keep the electricity on. And we have primarily volunteers, donations, fundraisers that keep our center open, but we provide a lot of community services in that building. And so I think it's money well spent, and I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you. Before you sit down.
I said, I'm echo the same word. Come back. This lady is wonderful in doing our grants. So she's a tremendous help. So thank you very much. And your question, Meals that Connect, It's right out of that senior center every day, Monday through Friday. Their drivers coming in, coming and going and picking up packs and stuff.
We provide them a space.
Yes, we do.
So,
They rent
The kitchen.
Yeah, would you turn on your mic?
sorry. So thank you very much. And thank you for what you do. And so just to clarify, there's two actual grants going, one's
And you
for
can
the,
go ahead and, yeah, stop their timer. Yes.
sorry, food and one for the center itself.
Right, we're not really connected other than we provide the space.
The space, then, yeah.
Thank you.
Although they do feed members that are seniors that come in off the street, they sit down and feed them lunch. It's unbelievable. If you get a chance, you need to come down and just see how everything goes on. So
Well, don't
Earl
go,
brought me in and I'm hooked.
don't go away because Mayor Pro Tem's got a question as well.
So just kind of following up on my questions, so how would you see yourselves invoicing the city? Would you send them your electric bills? Would you have a project you're doing? How would you see yourself invoicing the city for this?
Because you listed it as maintenance on operation.
Well, like I said, it was about, for 2022, it was about $49,000 to keep everything going. We could probably, pick, any one thing that, aside from the janitorial, because the city of San Luis Obispo County provided us some money for our janitorial services this past year. But I think in general, because of COVID, we were really in financial distress the previous year. We lost a lot of our membership, and then our activities fees, our dues were down, and so we could probably pick, the one staff that we have that is part-time, their salary, for example. And, when you think about, well, 42% of our membership was from AG, I don't know, we could work something out, I think that would.
Trying to get a sense of the
You
mechanics.
need your mic.
I'm just trying to get a sense of the mechanics. I'm very familiar with your.
Yes,
your
I know.
budget. I just spent years down there. So, and I mean, like I say, you could just put together 2 electric bills and you'd be there.
Right.
So at any rate, I just wanted to get a sense of how you thought you might meet that requirement. Thank you.
Jim, there's something happening at that center every week.
Something
broke.
breaking.
Right now, the oven door, me being there helping. I've got a list of things that I'm working on all the time. The swallows, the nests, we gotta get those down. They're gonna be coming back. We gotta get netting up, there's all kinds of things. So anyway, yes, and thank you very much for the donation.
Thank you. All right, so let's check in online.
If any members of the public on Zoom would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. We have one raised hand. Nan, you may now speak. Nan, you may now speak. Okay, Ramona, you may now speak.
Hi, I am Dr. Ramona Friedman, clinical psychologist, also an Arroyo Grande resident, and the president of the Center for Child and Adolescent Mental Health. And we are very grateful that the City Council finds value in helping our youth in our community with their complex mental health challenges. Providing mental health support to our youth and our families is a very complex problem and more in need than ever before. So we are looking forward to helping some of our families in our community subsidize their mental health treatment, and in some cases provide free mental health treatment when we can. We also have a teen youth program that is providing teen support and also empowerment on our local campuses. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Nan, if you're able, you can now speak.
Nan, this is Bob Lloyd with AGP Video. It looks like you are unmuting your microphone, but we're not hearing anything from you. You may have your microphone routed incorrectly.
Would you like to leave public comment open?
Yes, let's do that through council deliberations and we'll check back in before the end, before we take a vote.
Okay.
So please flag me down because I won't be thinking about that. Thank you very much. All right, so let's bring this back to the council and see how the council feels about this. And Councilmember Barnage, you got a bunch of chicken scratching going on over there. Do you have comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I have comments. I wanted to thank the grant committee. I spoke with my appointee this afternoon just to get some clarification on some items. Obviously, trying to split all of this money up to a lot of good organizations, all nonprofits, is hard to do. And you want to make sure it's fair in the eyes of sort of what the council has laid out as our goals for this money. In the past, I've tended to want to have the allocations go mostly towards things that are needs versus wants. So there's definitely nice things to have, but then there's things that people need to have to survive: food, shelter. So I do have some changes I'd like to see made to the recommendations. And some of these entities, to me, deserve to be fully funded. And so I wanted to see what the council thinks about that. I think all of these nonprofits are worthy. I just think with $75,000, I tend to want to fund things that are really going to make someone's day it's health and safety. And so I would like to see, to me, I really would like to fund the senior nutrition program, Meals That Connect. These are delivering meals to homebound seniors. Right now, they serve 201 Arroyo Grande residents. So that, to me, that's a lot of AG residents. So that would be a $4,000 more we fund. I would like to also see that Hospice of SLO County was fully funded from $5,000 to $6,000, and that the Shower the People was fully funded from $9,000 to $10,000. I also want to just make a note that when some of these entities are talking about scholarships, and I did go back and look at the math of how much money was going to scholarships. And for example, on the let's see, what was it? I don't know if it was, I think it was Little League, was $4,000 that they anticipated towards scholarships. So I just want to make sure, and however we go about doing that, that these are confirmed Arroyo Grande residents. And I don't know what happens to that money if we maybe whittle some of that down and it's just scholarships and they don't have anyone apply for the scholarships, then what happens to that money? So those are my comments just to start the conversation. Thank you.
Before
sorry.
comments, I have a question for you.
Me too.
Yeah, exactly. Where's the money come from? You said Little League, but you didn't say 6,000 from Little League.
No. So I would I would reduce the amount for Little League, and I would reduce the amount for the Central Coast Athletics Foundation. That's another scholarship question there. Both of those two sports teams, one's a club sport, or they're both club sports. And so that's where some of the money would come from to start.
Where would you finish?
I don't know yet. I have to do more math.
Clarification,
Yes.
what were the three that you were looking to add to?
So it was
Hospice?
hospice, an extra $1,000. It was shower the people, an extra $1,000, and it was the senior nutrition, an extra $4,000, so $6,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Councilmember Seacrest?
Thank you. I share Councilperson Brand Barnes' concerns. And I would agree with, I feel like hospice and Meals That Connect and Shower the People are all more basic, really, really fundamental human needs. And I agree that everything is a worthy cause, and I do appreciate all the work that everyone's done. But I would especially like to see the Meals That Connect added, fully funded.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Prompted question me. So, and I know I could look this up quickly, but hopefully you can go faster than I can. Did we get Little League money last year?
It's usually in the table, but it's not this year.
Yeah, it used to be in the
No, we did not.
Okay, and did we give the Central Coast Track Club? For some reason, I think we did, but I was
Neither organization applied last year.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And then let me ask on this safety issue you were referring to between the infield and the grass. If you said it's an expensive machine, is that why we don't just do it? Or and then I'm wondering what that costs. I mean, and how they taken care of that in the past.
Is that just one example of others, Bill, or is
Yeah,
that the one thing?
That is probably one of the main sources or funding points that we've heard of. For example, on the Babe Ruth field, that exercise or that practice or field condition improvement was done about 2 years ago with that organization. I hesitate to give you a figure because I can't remember exactly, but it's something that occurs probably every 5 to 7 years or so. That type of mounding and I'd say playing surface. So it's something that doesn't happen a lot, but it's very impactful and helpful when that is improved.
Okay, so this is something specific that isn't like done every year or part of just general maintenance, which is why we're seeing it now and didn't see it in the past.
I think that's a good characterization. Yes.
Okay. Well, I certainly agree with attempting here to transfer some of this money here. And if Central Coast Club track, which is actually pretty big, was not, I think one of the things I'll say in general is that we have to be careful that every time we bring somebody in, then we have to, frankly, there's some obligation because we're built into their budget. And so if Central Coast Track Club has not been in the past, and we're looking to transfer some money, that seems like a natural one. I didn't realize, I thought Little League had actually been in the past, but maybe that was more than a year ago. And I asked the question about the mural, and the reason I asked that question is they're $8,000 short. Did they indicate how they would come up with the money if we since we're not fully funding them?
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, that was a discussion at the grant review committee meeting, and the applicant, Arroyo Grande Public Art, indicated they do have other fundraising sources, and they were looking at maybe shifting some money within their organization to make that project happen. It's just they're kind of waiting to see the outcome of the grant program.
Well, I'm open to moving some money around. I'm not sure exactly where it all comes from. But yeah, I'm certainly open to that.
Are y'all done?
Yeah. Sorry.
Are we missing something? I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what's happening here. Forgive me.
Apologies. We do have a spreadsheet of all of the funding organizations, recommendations, and what your direction is so that we can make sure that the calculations are correct.
Oh, got it. So we can do this in real time like we've
Yes.
done in the past. Thank you. I was wondering if the building was on fire. Forgive me.
I wondered the same thing.
So before I make my comments, you had a quick suggestion. I mean, a question.
Thank you. It actually has to do with on the topic of the two sports grants. And I guess just as a sports novice, if you could just explain a little bit more. I think that teams come from all over the county to play at SOTO. Am I correct?
So I can tell you from personal experience, having been a member of HE Valley Little League, yes, it does include kids from all across, typically the 5 cities, but it does include multiple cities. Yes.
Okay. And so, sorry for the stupid questions, but do their fees cover? Do we get some reimbursements from everybody playing, or this is just other cities also have fields and they cover their costs? I'm just trying to figure out, like, more specifically how the SOTO field is funded. Are we, City of AG is mostly paying for this expensive, awesome sports complex? I'm just wondering.
Yes, I mean, we do have user fees and fees for reserving the fields and et cetera. But yes, the bulk of the maintenance and the funding source is from the city of Rio Grande.
Okay. Do you have any estimate of what fees we get from other areas?
I don't. Yeah, I think your question is how, like, people from outside of the city, what's kind of the makeup of that percentage that pay into?
A little bit. I know it's really expensive, and I'm just trying to figure out in terms of it being AG Center. I mean, I know it's located here, but I'm just trying to figure out how it's paid for. And the same question for the track organization. And I'm not in any way begrudging of course, any of the cities in the county, but just in terms of where this is going, is that a 5 cities club? Would the scholarships only be going to AG kids? How is that working?
So I'm looking right at it. So maybe while I make my comments, you can take a look. It's on page 338 of 442 because it's in the applications. Okay, so it's my turn to make comments. So first of all, I'm just going to be the stick in the mud. This committee did a lot of work, and I do not want to we do this every year, and we've said we weren't going to do that. And I don't want to sit here and nitpick what the committee spent hours and hours and hours doing. I want to honor the work that they did. I want to thank them for the work that they did. They did really, really hard work. And I'm for leaving it right where it's at. And we could make arguments all day long. I can certainly make arguments being a child of athletics and a beneficiary of Title IX, knowing that if you want to talk about rubber meeting the road and reaching at-risk kids, this is how you do it. And so while athletics doesn't seem as immediately necessary as shower the people, it's no less necessary as a member of the community. So all of these are really important, and I am for leaving it right where it is. And, if you want to pick a little bit off everything, that's one thing. But when we start targeting which one and how we're going to move thousands and thousands from one or two of these, we're getting into a real philosophical argument, and we didn't give that argument to our committee. And if that's what we wanted our committee to do, we should have done that before this. So I would like to see it stay right where it's at. I would like to just, because I did go through these pretty carefully, with regard to the Central Coast Track Club, it hasn't been in existence for very long, less than 2 years. So that's why we haven't heard from them before. AG Valley Little League has a very wide swath. And I understand your question, but without a doubt, they work with our kids here. And again, going back to the Central Coast Track Club, you remember the Jingle Dash that happened? That was them. So they formed this club and immediately became a city partner. And so that's what our nonprofits do. Additionally, there was a lot of talk about whether or not people could prove they're spending this money. And we created this program to stop the paperwork. And if they want to do paperwork, they can apply for CDBG grants. And I know that everybody out there has no idea what I'm talking about, but this group does. And I would not want to ask them for an invoice. We're either going to trust them to do the good work that they do or we're not. But I don't want to create a bunch of paperwork that staff now has to do. And again, you know, when the ladies came up here and talked about, well, we could show you this one or we could show you that. That's what all of them could do. It's just a waste of time. We either trust them as an organization or we don't. So I hope that this committee will think very carefully about if we want to piecemeal this together, then why do we have a committee in the first place? So I'd like to leave it as is and perhaps for next year, strengthen or change the instructions we give that subcommittee in terms of how we want this money divvied up and to what percentage we want each to go to each one of these type of categories. So let the discussion begin.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
would you like to return to public comment?
Thank you for reminding me about, yes, we do have public, I see you. Hold on just a moment, please. Go ahead, Nan, hopefully you got her mic working.
Hi, this is Nan Bowman. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Sorry about that. I had to restart everything. I just wanted to make a quick comment regarding our application in the sense that we were under the impression, just coming back to one of the questions that came up, that we do have we have to spend that money according to what we applied for by the end of the fiscal year. And I know that was one of the issues with the grant committee regarding the responder artwork that we wanted to do, because we weren't sure that we would be able to accomplish that goal by the end of the fiscal year. And so I know that's one of the reasons that they were not interested in funding that or that specific project. Also, I do want to let you know that the mural that we are proposing right now, it's going to be 1/3 funded by the building owner, 1/3 funded by existing cash that we have through Arroyo Grande Public Art. And then 1/3 will include the grant that we may receive and other additional fundraising. Just so you're aware, that's approximately between a roughly $20,000 to $30,000 mural that we're proposing. Are there any questions other than that?
It would appear not.
Okay. I do have one other quick comment related to the grant. And originally it was put out as a purely agricultural heritage grant. The grant committee, when our representative was there in that meeting, they were concerned that there were too many agricultural related murals, the one on the Mason Bar, and then the other one that went up over on the pharmacy building off of Grand. And the owner of the building has requested that we broaden it slightly to be more inclusive for Arroyo Grande heritage in general, and not necessarily to allow the artist to be able to give some interpretation on what that heritage meant. And it may or may not be specifically agricultural related at that point. And I believe that's all the comment that I have unless there's any questions.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have someone in-house who would like to come on up.
My name is Cody George. I'm one of the board members for AG Valley Little League. I wanted to come here primarily just to say thank you. This contribution is going to mean a lot to the league, a lot to the kids. We have about 455 kids that take part in the league. In terms of this contribution, it's a pretty significant contribution. I'm actually in charge of fundraising. So last year, somewhere between, in years past, like $15,000 to $20,000 is what the league operates off of. So this will, to be honest, like provide a lot of opportunities for us to do things like field improvements, provide uniforms. We have a scholarship program for kids that their families cannot afford to take part in the league. I think sports in general, the reason I was late is I just came from helping coach a basketball team in the playoffs, and sports provides a lot of just foundation for kids. Not everybody has the best home life. Not everybody has the structure that we can kind of guide kids to have. We can learn about competition, how to win, lose, prepare. There's a lot of fundamentals that we teach our kids outside of baseball. I know mental health is like a big part of this too. I unfortunately lost a really good friend to mental health last week. He was a mentor of mine, and we did athletics together. So, hopefully just me being here and just expressing our gratitude to this program, it means a lot to the league. It means a lot to the kids. It means a lot to the family. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, any other public comment?
If there are any members of the public on Zoom that would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. There are no raised hands.
All right, so we'll close public comment and again, bring it back around to us for discussion.
I have a question about the number of AG residents served over Rio Grande Little League. Can I ask?
Sure. You want to come back up?
Speaker?
I don't know if you're prepared with your stat book.
Right. I don't want to put you on the spot because you might not be the person who applied for the grant.
I'm not. I'm representing Kevin, who applied for the grant.
Okay, just maybe if you can just take this back for the future. There's a question in the grant about how many AG residents are served by the grant, the objective.
Yeah. I think it's roughly, from what I remember, we're doing draft night tonight, which is why Kevin can't be here. But it's around 455 kids.
So AG kids, 450 AG kids.
Yeah, roughly speaking. Some of them might come from other of the 5 cities, but we have 2 leagues in this area. So we have 5 cities Little League and a Rio Grande Valley Little League.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's the only question I have. Thank you again. So I'll just go ahead and follow up. I know, Madam Mayor, you said, and maybe you were speaking about yourself, that we wouldn't do this every year. I've never made that promise that we wouldn't do this every year. This is a public hearing. This is transparent. Here's what we're doing. And we have an ARC who makes a recommendation to the Planning Commission. We've served on the Planning Commission. We know we've upended decisions by the ARC, and City Council has upended decisions by the Planning Commission. So I'm not going to I appreciate the grant committee. I spoke with my appointee today and communicated that, but there are just things I feel strongly about. I definitely feel strongly about the scholarships for the people that can't afford the sports. So I would definitely be in favor of those 2 amounts from the 2 sports groups. I'm not against sports. My kids played sports since they were 5 years old, all the way through high school club, and through the local schools. Absolutely amazing things came out of those for my 2 children. But I just feel a little bit more strongly about some of our disadvantaged community members. So it would be my suggestion that we fund the grants within the Valley Little League, and we fund the grants or the scholarships, the scholarships within the keep forgetting the name. Hold on. The Central Coast Athletics Foundation, which from what I can see, it was $2,000 for scholarships. And then for the AG Valley Little League, it was $4,000 for scholarships. So if we fund those, I think we end up with 7,000. I don't know, Nicole can tell me going back. And then I would definitely be in favor of strengthening the guidelines and the objectives if the council feels strongly about what we want these applications to, what the objectives should be. And as far as the number of AG residents served, which is a question in the grant application, I strongly believe that we need to make sure that that is truly the number of Arroyo Grande residents served, because I think some of these applicants, they really went in there and they looked at true Arroyo Grande residents. I mean, they have, some of these people have like 42. So they really went and they looked at prior years versus the 1,200 and the 2,000. I don't know what that is, and I don't think it's accurate. And if I think they could take from the prior year, because they are applying for the, I don't know if they know for sure how these grants will serve the upcoming year, but maybe pull from a prior year. So those are my comments for the comment. Thank you.
So I do share the mayor's concern here about us redoing this, because this is not nearly the process that they went through. We just had a comment on how open that process was. And for instance, the track group is not here to promote themselves, because they defend themselves. But I also just want to quickly go back to, since I was here when we put this in, that the primary thing that we are trying to accomplish with this was not to have to meet the HUD requirements. For these small organizations, you still have to have some sort of performance criteria. And correct me if I'm wrong, we're already requiring an invoice. So this isn't a new requirement we're dreaming up tonight.
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure I understood that right. I also share some of the concern here about sports trainings in general. I understand sports is important too, but if back in the day we were subsidizing Soto Field to about $250,000 a year, between all of the sports. In fact, do we still waive most of the sports for like Little League and soccer, and are most of those fees waived? Used to be, but
No, we don't waive the fees for using the fields or for Condors using the fields, for example, in the evenings and things like that. So
even Little League and AYSO soccer pay you the same rate that softball.
I'm not aware of the exact rates, but there is a fee that is involved with each league that's going to be using the fields.
That's what it used to. It used to be that the recreation committee pretty regularly waived the fees, but okay.
Recreation committee to waive the fee.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, so there's no mechanism. So we do. So maybe I'm incorrect about what we do subsidize. We do spend a significant amount more than we take in. So at some point we're already paying into all of these sports league in some ways. So I have a feeling we're ended up 2-2 here, because I do want to join the mayor and say, let's not redo this whole thing that they had a true process for, and we have half a process. And I think that would be a fair alternative. But if it comes down to that we're not going to arrive at a decision, then we'll do what we have to do.
Councilmember Seacrest, you're up, girlfriend.
Thank you, Mayor. I do agree on one hand with Madam Mayor. I know the committee did a lot of work, and they just put a lot of work into this, and I think that they took it very seriously. And I very much appreciate that, as I know everyone on the council does, and everyone, I guess everyone that is associated with any of this. And I agree it's a good idea to maybe have a discussion before we get to this point next year, if we have some guidelines or categories we would like to firm up, because I do believe they tried very hard to fit the grants into the categories or the guidelines they were given. I think that's definitely the case. I'm making, and I understand I agree, we don't want to micromanage this and start like moving a bunch of Scrabble pieces around. However, I still would make a pitch if there's a way to give the senior meal program a little bit more. I do feel strongly about that. And I don't know where that leaves you all, but so.
If you're making that pitch, where are you moving the money from?
Thank you.
I don't know if it's readable. I can scroll on command.
I would make a pitch in the spirit of compromise, and I respect everyone's opinion here, and I respect all the committee's work and the applicants. I would make a suggestion that we take $1,000 from each of the sports grants and move it over to the meals for seniors.
You guys, your mics, you gotta have your mics on.
There's two. There's the.
Want to see how you get to $4,000.
Okay. No, I wasn't trying to get to $4,000. I was trying to add $2,000.
Okay.
So $1,000 from the Little League and $1,000 from Central Coast Athletics moved over to the senior nutritional program from the Meals That Connect, or the meals.
So for sake of argument, just for sake of argument, because I'm not for moving any of this money.
I understand that.
Taking a look at number one, Wreaths Across America. I love the program. I went out there and laid wreaths. That lays wreaths at Arroyo Grande Cemetery on veterans' graves on Veterans Day.
Yeah.
Great. But it's not serving the people of Arroyo Grande. So if you're going to move something, take the lowest hanging fruit. And so I guess what I'm saying is we could be here all night deciding what the lowest hanging fruit really is. And just because the athletic groups got higher numbers doesn't mean it's any less worthy or any more worthy than something else. So we're just really, it doesn't matter what you move, you're still opening up that discussion of what's more valuable than something else.
I understand what you're saying. And I don't have an easy solution. I was, trying to do like a compromise. I don't know much about the wreaths in the cemetery from the veterans, but I would think that is pretty impactful for veterans and their families in this town. And I guess I said I didn't go for that because it's so small. It's taking 1,000 from them would completely get their grant. So
I would move that we fully fund the grants from Arroyo Grande Valley, the scholarships from Arroyo Grande Valley Little League and the scholarships for the Central Coast Athletics Foundation, which is $2,000 for the Central Coast Athletics Foundation. That's the amount that we fund because that goes towards scholarships. And the Arroyo Grande Little League, they have stated that $4,000 is going toward the scholarships. And so that would leave $8,000. Hang on.
That'd be
$7,000. And I would move that to $4,000 to the senior nutrition program Meals That Connect. And $1,000, as I stated earlier, to hospice and $1,000 to Shower the People. I think I'm still $1,000 short, but.
Madam Mayor, if I may. For the sake of ease, what I'm hearing and trying to get consensus is there's a desire on the table to fund an additional $6,000 spread across the hospice, Shower the People, and the senior nutrition program by some of the council. What I'm also hearing is that there's a interest in reducing some of the grant funding to AG Valley Little League and Central Coast Athletic Foundation. I believe if you take $3,000 from each of those groups, you do meet the $6,000 that you're looking to fund. That would leave $4,000 for the scholarships for AG Valley Little League and $3,000 for Central Coast Athletic Foundation.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Okay, motion dies for lack of a second. Do we have a next second motion?
I will move, Councilmember Seacrest's suggestion of just taking $1,000 from each of the sports groups, as arbitrary as that might be, and move that to the senior meals program.
I would second that.
Any discussion?
No.
Isaac, did you have something you needed to say here?
Yeah, I would say before discussion, I just would emphasize what that motion was before we vote, just to make sure it's clear on the record.
$1,000 from each of the sports programs.
Maybe you could enumerate which numbers on
I can do so, I think. So the motion in the second removes $1,000 from the funding. This is attachment A in the resolution. It would remove $1,000 from the funded amount for number 5. And 11 would also remove $1,000 from the currently listed funded amounts. And those $2,000 would be added to number 17, senior nutrition programs / Meals That Connect, which would increase that to $8,000. Is that consistent with the motion maker?
Yes.
And the second?
You need your mic.
Yes.
All right, any further discussion? All
No.
right, Madam Clerk, can we get a roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Guthrie,
Yes.
Councilmember Seacrest.
Yes.
Councilmember Barnich.
Yes.
Mayor Ray Russum.
Yes. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break, so we will be back in just a little bit with item 10A.
I was excited. I know. I was stronger. It's. Oh my goodness.
So we don't really need this, people. We got them those. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And then the resolution.
Right. I'm gonna have to redo. I know, and as soon as I was starting, I realized that you said to bring extra paper, which I have this, but I wanted my notes in front of me. No, is that this point? You were just gonna do it.
Madam Clerk, are we ready?
We are ready.
All right, everyone, welcome back. We are going to proceed now. We went out of order as discussed at the beginning of the hearing. So we took item 12A right after the consent agenda. So now we are moving on to our public hearings. The first one is item 10A. This is holding public hearings and consider adopting a resolution updating the development impact fee schedule and consider the 2024 development impact fee nexus study and introduction of an ordinance amending chapter 3.36 of the Arroyo Grande Municipal Code, development impact fees. And I see she swooped in this time rather than the tornado.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Nicole Valentine, the Director of Administrative Services. Tonight, we will hold a public hearing and adopt a resolution updating our development impact fees schedule. We will receive and file the 2024 Development Impact Fee Nexus Study, and we will hold another public hearing and introduce the ordinance amending the Arroyo Grande Municipal Code Section 3.36.03 regarding development impact fees. I will turn our presentation over to our consultant, Carlos here with Wilden Financial Services.
Mayor and Council, I am Carlos Villarreal with Wilden Financial Services, and I prepared your development impact fee nexus study update. Tonight, I'm going to walk through a little bit of Impact Fee 101 so that we're all on the same page. I will discuss the methodologies used to calculate the fees. I'll go over some of the high-level assumptions, and then I'll present to you the maximum justified fee schedule and some policy options that you have at your disposal. Next slide, please. All right, so what are impact fees? Development impact fees are one-time fees typically imposed at the building permit stage to new development projects. They are imposed on all projects within a defined geographic area. In this case, all of the fees are charged citywide, so it's a uniform fee schedule citywide. And the key is that impact fees fund facilities to serve new development. So they can't be used for ongoing operations and maintenance or rehab or salaries. It really has to fund the infrastructure and the facilities that's demanded by new development as that development comes into your town and demands new services and the facilities to house those services. Next slide, please. So in California, it's the Mitigation Fee Act in Government Code 66,000 that lays out how a local agency would calculate and implement impact fees. Our study needs to make several key findings. We need to demonstrate that new development creates the need for facilities. The new development will benefit from the use of the fee revenue that gets collected, and that the fees are proportional to each unit of development share of facility costs. We also need to document the purpose of the fee and how your agency plans to spend the fee revenue. Next slide, please. Recently, the state adopted AB 602, which made some changes to how impact fees are calculated and implemented in our state. There are some sort of housekeeping items with regards to transparency, making sure that cities and counties make sure that your current impact fee schedule and other related documents are posted online so that there's transparency there. There have been some changes to the impact fee adoption process, including a 30-day notice before tonight's public hearing, which we're complying with. And then in terms of technical changes, the biggest one here is that residential fees need to be calculated per square foot. So your current impact fee schedule, which I believe was last updated in the year 2000, so it's been quite some time, the current fee schedule charges fees per type of dwelling unit. The state has now recommended that fees be charged per square foot so that larger units pay proportionally higher fees than smaller units. And this is part of the state's efforts to increase housing production, to incentivize smaller units and more housing production. As part of the study, a large jurisdiction, and that's defined as a city in a county or the county itself with more than 250,000 residents, need to adopt a capital improvement plan as part of the study. We have that included in our study. The next study needs to identify the level of service, and we include that in our study as well. And then if the fees are increasing, the study needs to review the original assumptions justifying the original fees, which of course our study does as well. Next slide, please. So here's our basic methodology. We start by estimating demand for facilities. And in this context, we think about demand for facilities in terms of people. So people that live and work in your city. From there, we can identify facility standards, and I'll describe this a little bit more in a subsequent slide. But a facility standard is a measure of demand for facilities. A common example is park acres per 1,000 residents. Using those standards and other facility planning that the city has done, we can then determine the new facility needs and the cost of those facilities, and we can allocate a share of those to accommodate growth. So in some cases, new development might fund all of the needed facilities, and in other cases, new development might only pay their proportional share if existing development is also going to benefit from those facilities as well. In the case where new development would not be fully funding the facilities, we then identify the alternative funding needed to fully fund those facilities. And then finally, we calculate the fee schedule by allocating those costs per unit of new development. Next slide. So in this study, we looked at these impact fee categories. Each fee category has its own fund. So when fee revenue comes in, that fee revenue goes into a segregated fund, and that fee revenue can only be spent for the purpose for which it was collected. So the study includes fire protection, police, parks, recreation facilities, water, transportation, storm drain, and wastewater. Next slide. So I mentioned the first step of the process is identifying demand for facilities. We use data from the SLOCOG's 2050 regional growth forecast, the medium scenario, to identify the increase in residents, dwelling units, and employment between now and 2050. So our planning horizon is 2050. It's a pretty long planning horizon. But as you can see, your regional planning agency has anticipated a pretty significant amount of growth, over 20,000 new residents and around 7,900 new jobs. Consequently, you're going to need more services and facilities to house those services to meet the demand from this increase in population and employment. Next slide. So I mentioned facility standards. Depending on the facility category, we use one of two approaches. One is the existing inventory approach, and here is where we are asking new development to maintain the same level of service that your existing city enjoys today. The basic math is we take a look at the replacement cost of your existing facilities, divide that by existing demand, and the resulting cost per capita is what we ask new development to contribute to, again, maintain the same level of service in terms of the ratio of facilities to people going forward. The planned facilities approach is where we can allocate specific facilities needed to serve new development to the increase in demand from new development. And this was, for example, used for your wastewater facilities, where we could identify the capacity expanding costs of expanding the wastewater system, and new development pays for those costs completely. Next slide, please. So again, this is just sort of an illustration of the two approaches that we used. Under the existing inventory method, the amount of future demand is proportional to the amount of new facilities demanded. So again, we're just trying to maintain the same ratio of facilities to demand going forward. Under the planned facilities approach, new development fully funds the identified facilities needed to serve that demand. Next slide. So these are the methodologies that we use for the various facility categories. We can mix and match the different approaches depending on what makes the most sense. We chose, in consultation with city staff, to use the existing standard approach to calculate the fees for fire protection, police, parks, and recreation. Again, for those facilities, we're just trying to maintain the same level of service that your current residents enjoy as new residents come into town. We had engineering studies for transportation, water, wastewater, and storm drain that identified facilities needed to serve new development. So we used the planned facilities approach to allocate those costs to new development. Next slide. So what does this look like in terms of fee revenue coming to the city? If you adopt the fees at the maximum justified fee levels between now and 2050, the impact fees are estimated to generate about $33.8 million. The total cost of all the projects would be about $49.5 million. And there has been some other additional funding identified for some of these facilities, particularly water and wastewater. Next slide. Okay, so here's the punchline. What does this look like in terms of the fee schedule? You can see the fees presented for each of the facility categories there. For new residential development, all told, it would be $5.79 per square foot of residential building space, $7.57 per square feet for commercial, and $8.12 per square foot for office. That does not include the water fee, which is charged based on the water meter size, and you can see the fee schedule there below. Next slide. So you do have some policy options. You can always adopt a fee schedule that's less than the maximum justified amounts, but no more than the maximum justified amounts identified in our study. Because it's been some time since you last adopted impact fees, and it's going to be a significant increase, you could choose to phase in those increases over time. That would give the development community some certainty as to what the fees would be, but you wouldn't implement the entire increase, starting on day one. And then the third option that you could consider is that many jurisdictions choose to reduce or exempt fees for certain land uses, particularly affordable housing, and some jurisdictions exempt fees for ADUs because they want to encourage housing production. And that's the end of my presentation. Happy to answer any questions you might have for me.
Thank you very much. Let's start with Councilmember Varnich. Any questions?
What was the date what was the year you said we last updated these?
The year 2000.
Okay, thought it was a lot more recent than that.
So did I.
I felt like I just did it. I wasn't quite up here in 2000. I mean, I was other places, but
We updated the Nexus study in 2000. We annually have presented increases based on CPI. And so we do annually bring this back to you. There were, I'd say, probably 5 years between 2024 and 2000 that the CPI might not have been brought before your council, but this was brought back more recently than 2000. It's just that the study was based on facilities from 2000.
okay, that makes more sense because I was like, okay, I've been absent or something. So thank you.
Thanks for asking that question. All right, Councilmember Seacrest, any questions?
What did you call it? The CPI?
Consumer Price Index. Thank you. Is that it? No. Okay. Councilmember George, any questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, just staff. So on the ADU, I thought the state said we had to exempt ADUs if they were under some.
I believe it's 750 square feet. There's no development impact.
They're already
Correct.
exempt, and that's covered in somehow in this.
It's covered in the fact that they don't receive any fees, but I'll lean on the city attorney.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, it's application specific, but since state law sets the floor for how we have to process ADU applications, that happens automatically when submitted if it meets that criteria. So it'd be outside the Nexus study.
Okay. And it may have been somewhere in the report, but how much are and I realize, I guess it depends on the use, but for instance, do we have a sense of how much we're increasing fees for a 2,000 square foot home or something? Well, I guess the square footage fee over the previous square footage.
Yeah, I could answer that. So, and again, you're totally right. It varies on the size of the unit. But for the average sized unit in your city, which I believe was about 2,700 square feet, it would be a 95% increase if you were to adopt the maximum justified fee across all. So
almost double.
Yeah, almost double.
Even with the CPI increases.
Exactly. Compared to your current adopted fee schedule. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, my only question is, I guess maybe I'm being devil's advocate as to why we would want to phase them in. I hear you saying the development community would have some assurance, but the development community is going to know whatever's in our table.
Yeah. For some jurisdictions, when they haven't comprehensively updated the fees in a long time, the perceived increase can be a shock to developers. That's just a policy decision you can choose to make or not make. You could certainly implement the entire amount all at once. That tends to be a compromise between some agencies and builders in their towns if they want to sort of ease into the new fee schedule. It's not something that you have to do. It was just an option to consider, again, because you haven't updated comprehensively your study in quite some time.
Great. I guess I'll wait to hear if anyone has public comment, and that'll help me understand whether there's an outcry.
Sure.
All right, great. Thank you. So that concludes our comments or questions, excuse me. So we'll go ahead and open up public comment. Would anyone like to speak on item 10A? And seeing no one here, let's check in online.
If any members of the public on Zoom would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. There are no raised hands.
Okay, well then let's bring this back around to the council. How about Councilmember George? Would you like to go first? Do you have comments?
I have very few comments on this one. I don't support phasing in, and I support staff's decision.
Councilmember Seacrest.
I agree with both those statements.
Councilmember Burnich.
Ditto.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I'll support staff's position. I will say I'm pretty shocked that the fees are doubling here, even though we've had a CPI. And it's not like we didn't have any projects back in 2000. If we'd only known what they really cost, and maybe we would.
They're all roundabouts now.
Well, at any rate, yeah, I'm in favor of moving forward and not phasing this. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to make a motion? My comments are all implied.
Okay. All right.
And I have just one note in advance of making the motion. We did notice both the public hearing associated with the resolution that would approve the actual development impact fees. There's separately an ordinance update that's necessary to update our code accordingly. The city could do a consolidated public hearing, but I think because we accepted public comment for 10A, the nexus and resolution, the first motion would be associated with the nexus study and the resolution. And then the city should just check and see if there's any public comment associated with the ordinance. I know it's a little confusing the way it's written out in the agenda.
Could you put that in layman's terms, please?
The initial two motions, I just heard Jessica
Thank
state
you.
that,
That's
two
helpful.
motions.
Okay.
Thank you. So the first would be associated with the resolution that approves the development impact fees associated with the nexus study.
Okay.
And then the city council would seek public comment and then make a second motion associated with the first reading of the ordinance that would make consistent our Muni code with the updated development impact fees.
And why are we opening public comment again?
The public comment that was requested was for item 10A, and I just want to make sure if there's public comment associated with 10B on.
We're not doing 10B is formula businesses.
My apologies. It is one item, so I think we're covered by public comment.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
I'll move a resolution of the City Council of the City of Arroyo Grande adopting development code impact fees for all new development within the city and taking other actions there too. Do you want me to read the other one too? Yeah.
It's page 193.
Sorry, I clicked on the resolution. I don't understand. It went, well, it went. Sorry, I clicked on the second resolution, but it went to the study, the actual development impact study.
Yeah, that is what I'm getting to.
Here you go.
Is that the
I
second
don't know
one?
where it is.
I'll move an ordinance of the city council of the city of Roy Grande amending section 3.36.030 of the Roy Grande Municipal Code regarding development impact fees and finding the ordinance exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, let's get a roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Guthrie,
Yes.
Councilmember George,
Yes.
Councilmember Barnich,
Yes.
Councilmember Seacrest.
Yes.
Mayor Ray Russum.
Yes. And that would conclude item 10A. So that moves us on to item 10B, and we've got the musical chair going on over there. Welcome. I almost called you Commander. Pedrati. We have the introduction
Sounds
of an
good.
ordinance amending section 16.04.070 of chapter 4 of title 16 of the Arroyo Grande Municipal Code regarding the definition of formula business and finding that this action is exempt from review under the CEQA Act.
Thank you. I'm Brian Pedrati, Community Development Director. And these are the amendments to Title 16 of the Arroyo Grande Municipal Code regarding the definition of formula business. So this is an introduction of the ordinance amending Title 16 and finding the action exempt from review under CEQA. Introducing the ordinance tonight will allow for adoption at a future city council meeting following this notice public hearing. So in March of 2005, the city council directed staff to research and propose formula business restrictions applicable to the village, core downtown, and village mixed use of the historic character overlay. In April of 2005, the city council held a study session, and there were concerns about the proliferation of formula businesses, that they detract from the character of the village, the architectural distinct village, and potentially could cause startup independent retail businesses to be priced out. So in August of 2005, the city council did approve an ordinance that prohibited formula businesses in the village core downtown and the village mixed use with the historic core overlay, and it included a definition of formula businesses. And we've seen this map at the study session before. These are just the areas to which the formula business restrictions apply. And so the definition of formula business is a business limited to retail. This is the existing ordinance, limited to retail trade uses and restaurants that is required by contractual or other arrangement to maintain standardized services in the same or similar name, trade name, or trademark, which causes it to be substantially identical to 6 or more other establishments, regardless of ownership or location, and which satisfies one of the following 2 criteria. A, it has an exterior design or architecture, designs, decor, or similar features in a style which is distinctive to and standardized among the chain group, and B, it is a fast food restaurant. So some noteworthy things about the definition that we went over in the study session, but I'll repeat now. It includes the retail trade and restaurant uses only. It excludes other businesses such as offices, hotels, or inns. It does still allow an opportunity for local startup stores or restaurants. And then fast food restaurants, more than 6, are outright prohibited. Sit-down restaurants and retail, more than 6, are prohibited unless they have an exterior design, architecture, signs, decor, those types of features which are distinctive to and standardized among the chain or group. So this issue was brought back in 2023 when the city received a new application for an ice cream shop which had 5 other store locations throughout California. Despite the fact there were other establishments, it did not meet the formula business definition because it still only had 5 other locations. But it kind of triggered a new discussion about the formula business definition. And so on May 23rd of 2023, the City Council talked about those concerns about formula businesses and directed staff to review the definition and return with a study session. And that study session was held on October 10th. And City Council, after some discussion, directed staff to come back with an amendment to the definition and gave additional direction regarding looking at increasing the 6 establishment threshold, as well as looking at whether the definition should apply to all business types, and then look at whether it would be appropriate to remove the 2 criteria in the definition, the A and B at the end. So proposed revisions were made, which I'll go over in a few minutes. And on January 16th, those revisions were taken to the Planning Commission, who recommended approval of the ordinance amendment as proposed and forwarding to the City Council. So the proposed revisions include an expansion to all businesses as originally directed by the City Council. Again, it's currently limited to retail restaurants. The change would remove those categories and apply the definition to all businesses. It changes the qualifying criteria. It removes A and B criteria from the definition, and I'll show that in a second, which essentially closes the loophole that would allow some formula businesses to locate in the village if they did some changing of decor and style and things like that. And then the number of locations was proposed to be increased to from 6 to 10. And this was looked at as maintaining the identity of the village without stifling economic development. Staff went and per sort of the direction of City Council, went and talked to Sonoma and Malibu about their limits of 10. And got some general, in some way, got some feedback that there had been no adverse impacts to having the 10 limit. So the proposed revisions are shown here with strike through in addition. So again, the first strike through would expand the definition of a formula business to all businesses. And then if you go down a little farther where it strikes out 6 and adds 10, that increases the number of establishments. And then the last strike through is taking out the 2 criteria that create the loophole. The council also discussed legally non-conforming aspects of a proposed ordinance. And so the expansion of the proposed ordinance to all businesses creates legal non-conforming businesses in the village. Non-conforming uses would be discontinued if the use is changed to a conforming use, or it is discontinued for a contiguous period of 180 days or more. Non-conforming uses can continue through a change of ownership, change of tenancy or management of the building, land use, or if activity is substantially unchanged. So those are all referencing our existing legal non-conforming restrictions that are in the code. There's nothing different and specific to formula businesses. The proposed ordinance staff found to be supported by the general plan policies, including economic development policy 82, 3-4 and 5-4, which all support the small town character, maintaining the village as a vibrant downtown core, and LUE policy LU6, supporting maintaining the village core as a symbolic function and unique business center of the city. So the alternatives are to introduce the attached ordinance, or modify as appropriate and introduce a modified ordinance. Do not introduce the ordinance and provide direction on specific revisions or provide other direction to staff. And staff has recommended that you introduce, read by title only, and waive further reading of an ordinance, amending the definition, which is section 16.04.070 of the municipal code regarding the definition of formula businesses, and then find the ordinance exempt from CEQA because it has no potential to result in either a direct or reasonably foreseeable indirect physical change to the environment. And that concludes staff's presentation.
All right, we'll see if there's any questions. Councilmember Seacrest, any questions? Councilmember George? No questions. Councilmember Burnich? Mayor Pro Tem?
Could you put up the little map that shows the different zoning things for the village? That okay, so it's kind of like the lightning rod. Just quick answer on what would be possible and what wouldn't. So thinking of the Bank of America project, which is on the very west end of this, or maybe that's the south end. So if Bank of America sold the building to another bank, but obviously they're not buying Bank of America, could that other bank open in that location? In other words, the business didn't get sold, but the building did.
So the building,
in other words, Chase takes over that location.
Right.
Yeah. So they obviously didn't, but it's not a merger. That's is where I'm trying.
So I believe it would fall under the formula business definition.
Okay, so a bank couldn't, no other bank than Bank of America can be there essentially, and unless there's a merger.
That would fall under a legally non-conforming use and would be allowed to continue.
Oh, I thought you said the other way around. Okay.
Oh, so, yes.
Okay. So even though the business changed. Okay.
Yes, because the underlying land use remains the same.
All right. So Rooster Creek sells to Olive Tree.
Garden.
Olive Garden. Thank you. Olive Garden. Thank you.
You understood that.
No, because in that case, so while it's a restaurant, that does have more than 10 other locations. No. I'm going to turn it over to our city attorney to answer that question.
Sorry, I got a bunch of them.
Oh man. Well, I would just say, first the lawyerly answer, which is we would look on a case by case basis of it.
I'll tell for probably yes or probably no.
Okay, so the what our city manager Downing was getting at is that the continuation of a non-conforming use. So if it's a restaurant and it moves to another restaurant, that's permissible under our legal non-conforming use structures, including formula businesses, so long as there is not an expansion or a change in the underlying use. So the change in ownership from one restaurant to another is a legal non-conforming use that is permitted under our code.
Even though it's switching from a non-formula to a formula business.
So I understand your question better now. So in that instance, a restaurant is not a non-conforming use. Rooster Creek is not a non-conforming use. It's a restaurant. It's an independent restaurant in our village. Switching to a different restaurant
Creates
that switching to a restaurant that has more than 10 chains is still a allowable land use, but then we would kick into looking at what's the underlying model of the business itself.
Okay. So your whole council's all has questions.
Yeah.
So
Can I just go through a few more just okay. Because I didn't actually expect to go there. So Tesla wants to put in a charging station at the Bank of America parking lot. Clearly they have more than 10 locations.
Oh, the charging station is a business. So
Business-
we have
it's a
here
business.
already in the village.
Do you have a Tesla charging station?
There's a Tesla charger at the aquarium.
Well, that seems like it would be illegal.
It's not a supercharger. but-
Well, they're clearly more than 10 locations. Okay. Maybe.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, maybe Isaac wants to correct me, but in this case, I'm not sure
But it would be a case by case basis, but we'd want to determine whether or not a Tesla charging station, for instance, is an establishment similar to a chain establishment, or if it's And they got a something sign, else with you know, infrastructure. saying there are more than 10 of them. All right. I thought this was going to be even that. Okay, so a hotel wants to come in on Traffic Way that has a, that's a Hilton Garden Inn. Is that right? Can they come in on Traffic Way in one of those two locations? I think if it's determined to be a formula business, then the answer would be no. Okay. So one of the car dealerships wants to bring in an additional line. They still same business, but they're going to bring in additional line. So the Ford dealership is also going to carry Hyundai, and they do that. Converting their RV. Okay.
Aren't they already the same business? It's just their
That's what
inventory.
I'm asking. Well, they're changing. They are growing their business and adding another, because car dealership is a form of business.
Yeah, and my apologies, Mayor Pro Tem. I think I don't have as much familiarity with like the specific street address or what business is located. I would say if we're talking about one business that's currently in the village and subject to the formula business requirement, if that changed ownership but was the same use, then that is a legal non-conforming use.
Neither of the car dealerships are in the overlay anyway.
But I do want to point out as well, if there's an enlargement of the non-conforming use, then that gets rid of the protections that it has in the business under our existing legal non-conforming chapter.
Okay. What was the other one I had? Oh, well, this is more straightforward. So still with the bank, going back to the Bank of America, that Blast 51 or Figueroa Mountain, who are less than 10, but certainly a big footprint restaurant, would they be able to take over that location? That's supposed to be an easy one, but yes. Okay.
I would say yes, they can take over, and it wouldn't impact the legal non-conforming use provisions if it is in fact less than 10 total units or locations.
All right, thanks.
Go ahead, Councilman Burnich.
So I guess what I was understanding that where we were trying to go was, for example, if Prudential Real Estate sold Prudential to another owner, either the business or the actual the real estate, they could still continue as Prudential. I did not think that we could all of a sudden invite in a new real estate company, say Century 21, because that's totally changing. I see what we're trying to do as far as if you want to sell your business to someone and have it continue, you're grandfathered in, but a brand new business comes in that's a formula business and it's totally a different brand. That seems like we'll never get out of these non-conforming businesses, because that could just be in people, same business model, different company continuing to come in.
I think that was more of a comment than it was a question.
No, I
What's
mean,
the question?
well, my question is, I guess I was under the impression that yes, these businesses that are here already can stay if they sell their business that's the same business to someone else, but we're not going to allow any more formula businesses in the village.
Not any new formula businesses. And I think that's the difference between what we'll call the Olive Garden example, where we're going from a non-formula business to a formula business, and that wouldn't be allowed. By changing the definition, you're essentially removing those loopholes, safeguards, whatever you want to call them, to where we have a new segments of land uses that become legally non-conforming because they are formula businesses in the village. So this because they are legally non-conforming land uses, they are allowed to remain under the city's municipal code, under the legally non-conforming. And that use, not the business, but the use is allowed to be maintained. So you can change the business name, you can change the business signs, all of that. But if you go to then increase the size of that business, you can't do that. So let's say you have a real estate office in half of a historic former city hall building, and you get somebody new in there and they want to expand to fill the entire space. They could not do that. They would go be relegated to that existing space that they own or lease in this case.
But Mayor Pro Tem's example that Chase comes in to Bank of America, that's allowed, the way it's currently written.
Because Chase would be, or Bank of America would then become a legally non-conforming use, and Chase would be able to move into that because it is also a legally non-conforming use.
But the moment they want to add on 300 square feet, they can't do that.
Right.
And just to add on to what City Manager Downing mentioned, our legal non-conforming use chapter, which will remain the same, makes clear that, well, you can change ownership, tenancy, or management and hold on to that legal non-conforming use. In this instance, the formula business. The activity, and this is what our city manager was describing, has to be substantially unchanged. That's the standard under our code. And so it does have to be the same specifics in broad strokes and substantial relationship to what's currently there. So the ownership can't change. And as the city manager mentioned, should there be a modification or expansion of that use, you lose that legal non-conforming structure. And I would also suggest if the new business needed a new set of entitlements, then staff would be looking at the legal non-conforming restrictions to determine whether there's a use that's substantially unchanged or whether it would lose that protection under our code.
Councilmember George?
Could I piggyback off of Councilmember Barnage's question? Because I understand what she's asking. So basically, if there is Century 21 here and they sell it to Remax and Remax sells it to Prudential, we'll always have a real estate, that a formula business there. So the reason why we put the non-conforming clause in there was to have respect for the businesses that are currently in here. So I assume, and I shouldn't assume because some of them may own their own building, but there should be some like a lease period. So is there a way to like sunset clause? I'm not using the right term, but like add a certain date and time that we say at this point, no longer will we have formula businesses?
So Councilmember George, the city has the option of doing an amortization period, which means there was a sunset on the current uses. So, if the council desires, it could be that, subject to an existing lease or disposition on the site, the council wanted to discontinue the use, then all that's required legally is some sort of amortization period, meaning there's some notice to the current tenant that after a certain date they're going to lose the protection of what's essentially going to be a non-conforming use under the formula business regulations. I would say if that's under consideration by the council, we would want direction to bring back a revised ordinance that reflected that, as opposed to a fallback on the existing legal non-conforming use chapter.
Can I ask, this question is for you, or maybe I should wait till discussion. I want to make sure I understand what you were just saying as a compromise, but I'll wait until we get to discussion. I want to hear from.
I'm not proposing that we do that. I was just asking in response to what Councilmember Barnage was asking.
So the question was, if I heard the answer right, the question and answer was, yes, there could be some changeover now, but after whatever date we put in the future, there is no changeover. Is that what you're saying? Okay. And so it would be up to us how long that window would be.
Right.
Got it.
And that's honestly, I haven't processed that thought.
I haven't either.
It
That's
was
why
just
my brain.
throwing it out.
Okay. All right. So let's process and let's open up. I do.
Just one more question before.
Sure.
So I knew there was about that. So the State Farm office over here, they have all that they really have that identifies them as being more than 10 locations. They're all individually owned. but they have a sign that says State Farm. Are they gonna be a formula business? I thought they were, okay.
I would imagine so, yes.
But if they sold more than just State Farm insurance, would they not be? Because now they would be a broker, an insurance broker. And they call themselves Smith Insurance. Oh, there's too many Smiths, I'm sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem, I think there may be some nuance in the hypothetical.
Okay.
I would say that the formula business definition, part of the direction from the study session reflected in the amendments is to remove basing the formula business on architecture or decor. So the definition now is broader, and it really is just that any business that maintains the similar name, trademark, and provides substantially similar services. So I believe there may be some nuance again to the specifics of the hypo, but if it's State Farm, by and large, I would think it would fall as a formula business.
Okay, thank you.
And just to be clear, I have no questions. So let's go ahead and open up public comment. Would anyone like to comment on this item?
One concern, I've forgotten the word that you provided that was a replacement for sunset, sorry. But if you were to put a sunset on something, and then let's say a village native business, say Ira's Bike Shop, were to start popping off opening locations all over, it gets to 11 businesses. Would that mean we would lose Ira's Bike Shop?
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jared. I live here in AG. I was listening at home as I put my kids to bed and had time to race down here. It seems like this, when I read the document in today's agenda, it seemed like the intent of this, at least according to the general plan, was to support the small town character of the village, to quote the document, and to maintain the vibrant village core. I think to me, this seems very murky. I share similar thoughts to Councilman Guthrie. If I'm a small town, if I'm an AG native and I buy a State Farm franchise or some franchise that I own, but it's trademarked across the nation, I can't open in the village. I can't open in any of the blue. That's extremely concerning to me as a resident. You look around, there are many open, I mean, the one with the lizard poster in it for the last 3 years, like there's not an inability for small businesses to open or find spots here in the village. And so this to me seems like more red tape and more confusing red tape for small business owners, small franchise owners in AG to become a business owner here, to, you know, if we want to espouse economic development as a city, if we want to strengthen our core. So if Diablo shuts down, we have head of household income here. That's a lot of AG that you can't open any kind of a franchise, any kind of a business that now is just arbitrarily 10. That just seems very murky, very confusing to me as a citizen. That's concerning. I don't feel like it's baked out well enough. I know it's case by case, but that's just a scary thing to pass something like this and then say it's case by case and have it bite us in the future. I think we have a lot of room for growth, and there's room for small local businesses, and I think there can also be room for that to maintain the character. Like, does it need to be this type of legalese, or could it be design rules or ordinances or whatever the true government term is? If State Farm moved in, but we made them put a sign up that wasn't a bright red and white sign, if we made something that matched the character, what's wrong with having a State Farm here? People who live here need insurance. So that's my opinion. That's my input on that. And thank you.
Thank you. Let's check in online and see if anyone would like to comment.
Any members of the public on Zoom, if you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand. There are no raised hands.
Thank you. We'll close public comment. We do have a question. So the question was the Ira's Bike Shop example, and what would happen if they became wildly successful and then had 11 businesses?
In the situation with the sunset.
Right, with the sunset, with regard to the sunset.
Brian Pedrati, I think it would depend on obviously how the sunset clause would be
drafted, but it potentially could make businesses that go beyond the 6 or the 10 establishment vulnerable. I don't know if Isaac.
Well, nothing would happen unless they were proposing a new use, right?
That's correct.
Correct.
So it's not like they would automatically become disallowed.
Again, depending on, I guess, the sunset provision and how that was crafted.
Yeah, I would, separate from the sunset provision, I did want to note that the ordinance before the council tonight does specify that the 10 business limit is specific at the time of the application submittal to try to clear up concerns raised during the study session. Obviously, should the council provide direction about a sunset or some sort of amortization period, staff would need to look at how to handle that separately. But I did just want to note, for purposes of when an application is submitted under the draft ordinance, it would be at the time of submittal that you would look at this specific number.
So if there was no application, nobody'd be looking at them. Got it. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I want to go back to the ice cream shop. So I believe that Bernard or
Rory's.
no, he was there before. I'm sorry.
Oh, Dr. Bernstein.
Doc Bernstein's was more than 6. They had more than 6 locations. So would Rory's, if they had been 6, also be able to take over that formula business location because Doc Bernstein's had grown into it?
In other words, going from a formula business to a formula business.
So they grew to become a formula business, even though they weren't when they started. And now another formula business wants to take their location.
Well, in that example, my thinking is Rory's is a separate, it's not a 1-for-1. It's not identical to the prior ice cream shop. So I think we would look at the new business, but I might be misunderstanding the question.
I'm just gonna say it's no different than Chase. Chase taking over a bank, they don't expand it. I'm sorry, I don't want to get. So I'm thinking of unintended consequences.
I think to your point, as the Ira's Bike Shop example is a good example. When the use is established, it's not a formula business, even though it grows and becomes a formula business with more than 6 or 10 locations, whatever the council lands on. Then Rio Grande becomes the home of the original Ira's Bike Shop. And it doesn't become a formula business just purely because they become successful and expand out from our city.
Okay, but then let's stay with Ira's Bike Shop. So now they're out at 11, and Schwinn Bicycles, who have many locations. So I know that's not accurate. Comes in and buys all 10 of them.
But wouldn't it be at the time that you are comparing applications? You're comparing the time of the application and the time of the
So
application.
the fact that they changed business wouldn't make any difference.
So again, when they established here in the village, they were not a formula business. And because they grew to have more than 10 locations, they are still not a formula business because they have not changed their use within our city limits.
Okay. Wow. I thought this one was a quick slam dunk one. I was ready for dinner. Right. So, well, Councilmember Barnage, would you like to lead us off with questions? Or comments? Sorry.
Sure.
Sorry. I need food, clearly.
So let's see. Thank you to staff for bringing this forward. I think last year or so, I had a question about Rory's ice cream, and which was fine, but it led to this other conversation about this weird fast food versus non-fast food, if it looks the same or it doesn't look the same. So I'm really happy that we're taking a look at this before someone came in and we were all even more confused. I'm glad that we're going to get sort of straight what we want or what we don't want. I think that when the council, so the village is so successful, I believe, because it doesn't look like every other downtown. So we have this unique atmosphere that the council in the past had the passion and the foresight to see that the Starbucks was coming in. And that was the rumor, and everyone was very panicked because we love Starbucks, but we really wanted to have this unique atmosphere that is different from every other downtown or most downtowns. And I will tell you, if you visit Monterey versus Pacific Grove that has a Formula Business Van, the two downtowns, it's completely a different vibe. So we can go to Starbucks, we can go to other Formula businesses. We have lots of other places that they can locate in Arroyo Grande, but we were trying to protect an area that was unique and special. And I think that the council did a good job. So happy that it's back, that we can try to make sure that we maintain this quaint atmosphere in a very, very small part of our city. So happy with what staff's proposed. I think what I'm unclear, I was under the impression that, and I'll just use Bank of America. I was under the impression if Bank of America sold to another Bank of America, they could continue. Now hearing that if Chase could come in, I'm not in favor of that. I wanted to preserve, if Century 21 wanted to sell to another Century 21, that's fine. But having another real estate company come in, I'm not in favor of that. And remember, this is a really small part of our city. There's lots of other places. We're not against those businesses, but we're trying to protect the small business owner that's might want to locate into the city, to the downtown core. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember George?
Thank you. I don't have very many comments because I really appreciated the study session where we were able to dive deep into this. I do appreciate all the changes that were made. I do appreciate that Planning Commission supported our change. I do agree with Councilmember Barnage that while we are putting a ban on formula businesses, it is such a small part of Rio Grande. We have a lot of Rio Grande left where businesses can go, where there are also open retail locations and business office spaces. I was ready to move forward. I did ask City Manager Downing about the transfer, in particular, if a real estate agent left and then a real estate company left and another one came in. And I don't know what the solution to that is. I do want to preserve the rights of the businesses that have been here and have been loyal to our city. And I don't want to jeopardize their livelihood either. So I don't know if there is some sort of a sunset for transferring of the land use. I'm just throwing that out there. I literally had not thought about it before the past half hour, but other than that, I'm ready to move forward.
Thank you. Councilmember Seacrest?
Thank you. So I also appreciate the staff's work. I appreciate the study session that we did have. And I respect this community speaker's position in wanting to support families that might want to buy a franchise. That makes sense to me. But my understanding of what we've been talking about is to try to preserve not just the way the city looks, but what's actually inside this very narrow zone. And what I think of with that is businesses that are very unique, like Andrini's or Mule Coffee. I think the point was we can't have a Starbucks move in. We love Starbucks. They're fine. They're great. But if they move in here, we're then jeopardizing the local specific businesses. So I appreciate the work, and I would be interested to hear about, did you call it amortization, with some of the formula businesses? And I understand the problem. I'm not quite sure how to proceed because I could see a real estate office that's been here quite a while, not really appreciating if we give them like, hey, you've got 18 months and then you need to move out. We do appreciate their support in the community and the fact that we do have them as a business. So I don't really know what to do with that aspect, but I appreciate the work. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
So I voted for this when it originally came through back in 2004, whenever it was. And my thinking at the time was that the village is a brand, and formula businesses, as we were describing them, Starbucks was the one, but is a brand that didn't fit. And actually I used the comparison that the factory outlet has a lot of rules to keep their brand, and we had the same thing. my hesitation then, and is going to affect my thinking now, was that we expanded it beyond the core. And I think I mentioned this at the workshop, that it is messy if it was just the core, if it was really just traffic way to Mason, or I'm not keeping track of the name of the streets beyond that, but I think there will be unintended consequences. I think there'll be business. What happens when Century 21 decides that he owns that business, but he would be better off being a Remax? See history. So I'm not going to support this tonight because I don't believe we should be including all of the village mixed use. And I recognize that we almost couldn't go there tonight. But I do think if we waited until after we were done with the general plan for this, that we could take a hard look at why we have this frankly weird pattern to me. There's no explanation for some of these gaps. I recognize some of them are public facilities, but how is the church not part of the village core? If somebody wanted to come in there, and remember for a while it was a furniture store. So at any rate, I'm not going to support. Yeah, it was difficult to be in there, but for me, so it was just so. Anyway, a total aside, sorry. So I'm not going to support this tonight because I really do think we need to take be able to free up the rest of these areas. I don't think the Bank of America should be included here. I recognize that there may be some other restrictions there, but I think that this just forces this on much too big of an area, and that we have, once we're off of Branch Street in particular, that we have other possibilities that we're going to TKO here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your very insightful Socratic method of approaching ordinance writing. So I've been listening really carefully because I came in here thinking this one was really going to be a slam dunk, and you all revealed really important things. Where I'm at right now is, first of all, I really appreciate what Councilmember Barnich teed up. And while I hear the speaker and restriction on business and all of that this is a very small part, and this is our identity. This is what makes Arroyo Grande, because otherwise we're just some town that's near the beach and there's no reason for anybody to come here. And that's really important to us. And I think that it's really important to the average citizen. So preserving the village, I think, is an easy thing to say. This is what we're trying to do. But, we're sitting here because we didn't want to wait 3 years before we did this. And so we're not going to get this perfect. It wasn't perfect before. It's never going to be perfect because each situation is completely different. So I'm okay going forward tonight, but what I would like to see when we go forward with the general plan is that we just simply, the bank is a very legitimate question. That is a single use building. A restaurant is not moving into that bank. They'll take the Chili's building before they take that. I feel like we should move, as part of the general plan update, if we move that out of village mixed use, we really remove the majority of the Socratic discussion that happened here tonight. So I am relatively confident that Bank of America isn't going anywhere in the next 36 months. So I'm okay with it being imperfect at this time, but I am not okay with it being as it is right now for 3 more years. So I will support tonight. I've been thinking about the sunset thing, and I think it's an interesting idea, but I'm not sure it really helps a whole lot. And the concern I have is part of the reason we have so much service industry here is because the retail landscape has changed. And I don't want to create this situation where we have a sunset and then it doesn't make it so somebody has to move. It makes it so that if the use is changing, then that can't go forward. And I don't want to create vacancies downtown. And we've already got enough of that. So I'm okay with this. While I think the sunset idea is intriguing, I'm okay. This has been vetted by the Planning Commission. I think we poke some holes in it and we can make it better in the future, but I think this is a really good stopgap for now until we get through the general plan. So I am ready to move forward as published tonight.
Just to follow up on the vacancies, recently there was someone who wanted to rent in the village and all the vacancies are now gone. The two that are vacant are owners that are just hanging on to those buildings and they say they're going to do something and they don't want to rent it out. So while I do appreciate that I don't want vacancies either, I think the most desirable real estate in all of South County is in the village. So I think if Century 21 all of a sudden couldn't sell to a Century 21, I think there'd be, depending on the economy, 5, 6 people lined up that want that for retail. And also we need to think about some of these businesses that aren't retail. We do want our walkable city for tax purposes for retail. And that's definitely, if we plug it up with offices, which I love offices, do they need to be chain offices in the core of the village? Or would someone just be absolutely over the moon to be able to open a retail establishment and then up the tax base for, up the sales tax for the city of Roy Randy? So I think that that's something to consider, if not now, for sure in 3 years. Because this is where people come to walk around and shop and eat and not necessarily,
buy insurance.
Exactly.
So are you arguing for the sunset? I could be argued into that now, but then that means it's got to come back.
Well, I was even more strict in the sunset. I was under the impression of what I gave the example was that you can be a Century 21 and then another Century 21, but you can't be all of a sudden a Prudential. And so a sunset to me would be better than nothing, because there'd be some protection there for the people that own it. But I just don't think that I really have a hard time after helping someone who was looking to locate in the village.
I got an idea.
Yeah.
I got an idea. So that covers Councilmember Barnage's concern and something that Mayor Pro Tem said. So could we, because that's what I originally thought we were doing as well. Let's pretend you have the single purveyor, they're Century 21, they decide they want to switch to Sotheby's, whatever. If it's the same applicant, can that be something that allows that to happen? Because that's not really a change of use. It's not even a change of the tenant. And I'm okay with that. But when you've just got sort of I don't want to say revolving door because they stay a lot longer than that. But if it becomes a new applicant, that would be what would trigger that.
Mayor, I think something like that is doable. We would have to vet the specifics of the language to ensure it was legally defensible. I think the only component of that would be it's separate from our legal non-conforming use chapter. So we would have to do language specific to formula business that made essentially a category of legal non-conforming use for applicants. It's different from what's otherwise applicable in our legal non-conforming use chapter that applies more broadly.
Question? Thank you, Matt. Can you help translate for me?
So essentially what we've been talking about all night is the city's existing municipal code when it comes to legally non-conforming uses. And that's one of the things that to remind ourselves of is we're talking about the zoning code, which deals with land uses, not business names, not applicants, not anything like that, right? What our city attorney, I think, is saying is if that's something the council's interested in doing in terms of addressing the very specific formula business aspect of a legally non-conforming use, what we would want to take a look at is, do we add a new category into the legally non-conforming formula businesses and see how we can craft that? Because there's non-conforming uses, there's non-conforming structures, there's non-conforming lots, legally non-conforming formula businesses. So I think that's what we're, if that's the will of the council, that's what we would be looking at kind of crafting.
And could you bring it directly back to us, or do you got to thread that through planning commission again?
We'd have to thread that back.
Okay. So I I'm not okay with sunset. I do think you are now taking what one of the things that people do when they build a business is they sell that business, and maybe that's their retirement, whatever that is. I do think,
Okay.
so I
We
also,
did talk about that before too.
yeah, and I think that even when you're talking about, so you're just gonna have somebody play a game. They're gonna come over here and buy the realty across the street, which I think is a Remax. And if they want to make it a Century 21, they're just gonna wait till they own it. And then they're gonna switch it to Century 21. I don't see how we could then manage that. If you want to, if you're the same tenant and you want to change it to Remax, we're saying that's okay. But a guy could come in and buy it and then he can't change it. It just seems incredibly complicated to me. And
Councilor George?
I definitely don't want any restrictions on the existing tenant. So if the existing tenant wants to make 15 changes, that's their right, because we're making this change after they've already been in business. The question was whether or not we could put a sunset clause on transfers. So let's say we maybe it's 20 years. I don't know. Maybe it's 20 years where that allows the current owners who plan to retire and sell their business, allow them to do that. But the next people that buy it would know that they wouldn't be able to after a certain date. So that was my intention with the sunset clause. It was never to put a sunset clause on the individual, the original owners, just if they, want to transfer it, and how many transfers, because that's what Councilmember Barnage is concerned about. In perpetuity, right? We could have a franchise here in perpetuity, and she's trying to figure out how to not do that. So is there a way to put a amortization or sunset clause on transfers after the original business owner? That's my, I'm just asking the question. But I would agree with the mayor. I would rather have an imperfect one and vote on this one now and note it for the general plan update to amend it again. That would give staff time to change the code for formula businesses to add downtown, whatever you want to do there. But I would like to move forward with this tonight, because if for some reason we get another vacancy, we're going back to our original, and our original we've all identified as not adequate.
I'd like to hazard a motion if everybody's okay with that. Because I feel like we're going around in circles a little bit. I would like to make a motion to introduce and read by title only and waive further reading of an ordinance amending section 160407 of the Oregon Municipal Code regarding the definition of a formula business and finding the ordinance exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, because the ordinance has no potential to result in either direct or reasonably foreseeable indirect physical change in the environment. State CEQA guidelines 15060 subdivision B2315378. And I would like to direct staff to, using the notes from this evening, file them in a folder and have this come up for discussion during the general plan update specific to the I'm going to say the words wrong, but you're going to know what I mean. The coloring of the legend of the Village Core Downtown and Village Mixed Use, in other words, which is designated in that core and in the mixed use area, and the potential for, I'll leave it at that. That is the end of my motion.
I would second the motion and second this request of staff to look into the issue further.
Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion, a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Mayor Ray Russum?
Yes.
Councilmember Seacrest?
Yes.
Councilmember George?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Guthrie?
yes.
Councilmember Barnage?
Yes. I bet my mic picked you up.
Yeah.
All right, council communications. Does any council member have anything to share this evening?
Thank you. I actually have a few things. Last week, I had the pleasure of attending the Lions Club speech contest for high school students. Unfortunately, at the last minute, we determined I had a conflict as somebody came running over. So I wasn't allowed to judge, but I was invited to stay. It was fun. It was impressive. The students all did a great job. I think that the president of Lions Club said this is the 87th year they've done this. It's amazing. And someone is given first place, and then there's it branches out into contests all over the state, ending with contests where I believe 6 students will individually receive $10,000. So it's very impressive. Everyone was very nice. That was fun and felt good to do. The other thing was I also attended the Volunteer Appreciation Day. That was really nicely put on. Got to serve some salsa to people. We do have an amazing community of volunteers, and it was really nice to see a good deal of them come out there. I'm trying to think if there was one other thing I wanted to tell you about. I think shout out, I know this has already been said, but just so appreciative for the way the city was able to respond, fire, police, public works, to some of these weather-related, frankly, borderline disasters. I mean, the situation at the Pike was so serious, it had the potential to be so serious with the lines down and the fact that people had to shelter in place. And I just think it's very impressive and wonderful that there was no injuries. Everything was handled. And so thank you for that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm just looking, give me 1 second.
Sure. Councilwoman or Mayor
Yeah.
Pro Tem's going to go while you do that.
So I received
You don't have your mic on. There you go.
Thank you. I don't know if you received this email from, it's a regional update from the CPUC, and specifically there you have a public forum on AT&T wanting to withdraw landline service. I don't know if you've read some of this on Nextdoor. So they sent this to us today for a meeting on the 15th. And I'm guessing that's because they're going to discuss that 93420 may very well lose landline capability. So I'm wondering if we could get staff, if you guys didn't get copy on this, I'll send it to you, maybe put it on our website so people could see it there. It is a webinar. You don't have to go to Orange County. You can do it online as well. So that's going to be in the 15th at 11 o'clock. And I'll forward it to you if you didn't get it. Thank you.
Losing a landline, that's like.
Makes me feel old.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah. I watched a movie yesterday and she had a landline phone and it was a hamburger. And you open it up and so I know that we do committee report outs at the end of the month, but I wanted to share this because this happened in December. I was at the 5 Cities Fire Authority meeting and they had a presentation, and I actually did ask them to come present, but I don't know if they're going to. So I just wanted to share a story that happened on December 20th where a car, and I'm not going to get all the details right, so City Manager Downing can fill in all of the details, but basically a car went off the road and got stuck in like a concrete
Culvert
drain.
Yeah.
It got stuck in there, and the person that was stuck in there was really stuck, and it required a lot of people. So I just wanted to thank, I'm gonna read the names because I don't want to miss anyone. So the person that was stuck, his name was Sutton Tompkins, and he was awake the entire time and able to communicate with Jeff Lane. He's an engineer, an acting engineer, and Jeff stayed with him the entire time throughout the process, talking him through it while they were trying to figure out how to extricate him from the vehicle. He was able to come to the meeting with his partner. I don't know if she was his wife, so I just say partner to be safe, and their brand new baby. So the thought that he could have been lost and that baby could have not had a father, seeing that visual was very
impactful for me. And I just wanted to thank our fire department and the following people who were all involved in the incident. So Battalion Chief Ryan Bird, Captain Tom Huey, Engineer Joe Rawson, Firefighter John Penner, Captain Bart Pearson, Acting Engineer Jeff Lane, Captain Mark Searby, Engineer Matt Hinden, and Firefighter Braden Jones. And I believe we had some other local, some of the agencies that came to assist as well. But that was a very impactful story of just what our public safety does for us here, and to see him up and walking and not in a wheelchair and not dead was very wonderful. So I just wanted to share and thank our fire department.
Wow, I missed a big one that night.
I have just a couple things. I believe the Five Cities Homeless Coalition's open house is set now for this Friday from 10 to 1. That was tentatively what I was told, and I know that Jana was, because of the rain, it was postponed. So, and the address of that is on Grand Avenue across from Mechanics Bank.
25 steps from the
1066,
1023 East Grand.
1023. Okay, 1023 Grand Avenue. So that's exciting. I was in there today, and it's exciting for them to have a permanent location. The other thing is that I wanted to extend my sincere thanks to Public Works of AG and the fire department and the police department, because my parents were hit. Literally, the tornado touched down on their property and knocked down 2 80 to 90 foot redwood trees, and did missed cars and the house and the ADU, and they were, obviously the power lines were down and they were without electricity. And not only that, they were a little bit trapped in their home because of the power lines that fell in the street. And the police department, Public Works, and the fire department were there very, very quickly. My dad wanted to go out and get the mail right after this happened. And the fire department told him no, he needed to go inside. So it was just pretty amazing. And just the response was so compassionate and instant. And I was out of town on my way back. So I just really appreciate the city of AG and also PG&E, who really got over there pretty darn quick and got it all kind of cleaned up. So just wanted to thank them for that, just to see their amazingness in action for something like that. Again, something else, pandemic, tornado, I don't know, just flooding, but thank you for that.
I don't know if that was an upper or a downer right there at the end.
Well, I mean, it's just, we're being tested. There's a lot of new stuff going on.
You know, there
handling
is,
it.
but the resiliency of Aurora Grande is pretty impressive. Yes, ma'am. Did you have
I
something?
just had one more comment. I forgot to say, but heartfelt, so amazing. All the streams went well. Go tally ho. Nothing, really a wonderful job. I think that everyone did, considering what y'all had to work with last year after the floods. So it's wonderful. Thank you.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going, was acknowledging that we had a pretty big disaster last year, and that's saying it lightly. And through the good work of individuals and citizen groups and our Public Works and our people and getting other agencies involved, and then we get through the next one. And I, the next day, received an email from one of the community leaders over on Tally Ho saying, hey, just to let you know, everybody's doing okay. And that was amazing. And that's just why we all live in this wonderful city. It's because that's what we do. So with that, we will move on to item 14. I'll turn it over to our city attorney to announce.
Thank you, Mayor. This evening for a closed session, we have one item: conference with real property negotiations pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. The property is located at 214 East Branch Street. The agency negotiators are Matthew Downing, City Manager, Bill Robeson, Assistant City Manager, Public Works Director. And I want to note, in addition, the closed session is in regards to a property with a current lease to Del Oro Properties Incorporated at the agendized address.
Thank you very much. So we'll adjourn to closed session. We'll report out at the beginning of any reportable action at the beginning of our next meeting, which will be in 2 weeks.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
public comment
Oh, indeed.
for closed session.
Indeed. Thank you for that. Woo! Look at Deputy.
Good job.
All right, let's go ahead and open up public comment on the closed session item. And we'll check online.
If any members of the public on Zoom would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. There are no raised hands.
All right, then we will close public comment. We will adjourn. Thank you so much.